Inside a sprawling estate, Rest jolts at the news he's been officially yanked from the Heir spot, and his family name is gone for good. This is the story of how a fan-favorite novel finally makes it to the screen, and the wait is over. Transformed into a manga. The kid blurted out, "I'm Rest dying." 9, but everything feels off now, like the past is slipping away because that name got ripped away from him. Now he looks completely spent, like he can't even process the truth that it's the morning of his 18th birthday, and someone just threw him out of his own damn house. Rest storms off with his chin tucked, eyes locked on his own thoughts moving. A crooked little smirk crawls onto his face, and just like that, his whole vibe flips. He throws his fists up and roars in victory, finally free from his family, meaning he'll never have to inherit the Dine family legacy or get pulled into their non-stop drama ever again. And honestly, he's beyond fed up with every annoying custom and stiff etiquette that comes with being a nuisance. It all traces back to the Dine family, big-time, high-ranking nobles who rule the kingdom. But honestly, getting Rest just meant breaking the whole routine. There were still too many rules and chores stacking up on him. As he walks down the street, a voice snaps his name. He whips around, ready for whoever's calling. Berg, his younger stepbrother, stood right there. Then it all clicks. Rest finally realizes exactly who it is, and everything shifts. Berg's face is plastered with worry as he blurts out, "Why is Rest out here alone? Where are all the servants?" He stares at the floor, voice shaking, and blames himself for not being able to stop his mom from what she's doing. He already felt it. His stepmother was cooking up a scheme behind his back. She threw everything she had into one mission, turning her son, Bergs, into the next head of the family. But Rest just grins and shrugs it off, saying it's totally fine, because now he can finally escape from all that suffocating noble drama. Berg still looks like he's seconds away from snapping. Bergs keeps pushing the conversation, insisting on the exact place where Rest was given land. He looked genuinely furious, like his mother really picked the completely undeveloped Aldoba Island as the destination. Rest is supposed to move in, but he immediately clocks it. This is his new turf, while Bergs just stares like he's stunned. Totally freaked out, yelling to make sure he heard that right. Rest stays calm. But he's basically saying, "I really thought I'd be shipped off to my stepmother's homeland in Kyle territory," because that's what he believed in the first place. It's way out on the edge of the world. Scratching his head, he wrestled with that choice like it might decide everything. It just screams how brutally she despised him. Bergs jumps in to help right away. He promised that even if it came down to it, he'd secure a ship and pull together a crew to sail with him. Rest fires off a grateful smile, saying he truly appreciates the kid for going out of his way like that. Berg just stood there, staring ahead like he was still drowning in the guilt of everything that happened. A tiny, real smile blooms on his face as he looks straight at his brother. He made sure Bergs knew, because trying to help makes him an absolute legend of a younger brother. He tells the kid to toss the whole worry out the window, because none of this matters, and admits that Bergs is, honestly, way better built to lead the family anyway. Bergs snaps completely, convinced his brother isn't risking anything for himself, just playing hero for his sake. Rest just stands there, stuck in his head, and somehow he's actually relieved he's getting out of here. He honestly can't wrap his head around why his brother is losing it, emotions hitting him like a tidal wave. Especially when Berg starts sobbing, saying he isn't strong enough to stop the exile. The sun begins to sink behind the massive stone walls of the family castle, painting everything in a fiery glow. The birthday celebration keeps rolling, and that massive cake just sits on the table like a sweet challenge. The dark-skinned maid wipes her hands clean, finishes the cooking, and immediately calls out to everyone that the food is ready. The food's ready, and it's time to dig in. Rest swings through the doorway with a massive grin, shouting that he's finally back. The red-haired maid greets him on the spot, and when he steps in, she blurts out birthday wishes right away. Everyone drops into their seats for a crazy big feast, and right as the plates start stacking up, one of the maids, Caddy's, corners Rest and demands to know what kind of place his brand new home on Aldoba Island really is. The question slams into the younger maid and knocks the air out of her. She freezes on the spot, eyes blank like her brain just went silent. He clears his throat and tells the table, "I'll explain everything," because he knows the history, every last detail. He's breaking it down. Aldoba literally means the farthest reaches. He goes on to describe it as a total no man's land, an isolated rock towering in giant cliffs with a chilling vibe hung in the air, so bad that the kingdom basically threw in the towel and stopped even trying to investigate the place. The moment they hear their lords being shipped off to that shady island, the maids look like they're about to break, pure non-stop stress. Rest reclines with a relaxed grin and calmly tells everyone, don't worry. He doesn't sweat it. He's sure they'll crack the code and make it work, and then he adds that Bergs is even sending a few of his men to help, at least until they finally reach the island. While they tour the estate, he grabs their attention, pours out his thanks, and begs them to watch over his brother while he's away. They're not about to let him disappear solo. One of the maids watches from nearby, worry written all over her face. Tareen steps in and declares she's coming with him because taking care of him is literally her job. Right on cue, Agni jumps in and tells Rest he's being way too casual about it. And she kept stalling, so he snapped, tell me who's even going to cook if she stays back. Then boom, fail. Phil lunges in right behind her, flailing a hand like a megaphone and yelling that she's coming for sure, right as Rest. She's buzzing with excitement because she thinks this whole situation sounds like a blast, and Rest is just baffled that she's taking it this way. Agni just throws a loud sigh at all that energy and mutters, F***K. The whole vibe screams field trip more than dangerous mission. The second it clicks, his eyes light up, and suddenly he's totally obsessed like this is the biggest field trip ever. Rest digs in and insists everyone else is right, like this whole thing is just a field trip. And he leans in and tells you he even got his hands on the kingdom's official survey data for the island, so they're completely. Which fires Fail up even more. She practically begs to know if she can bring snacks for the ride. Rest is all for it, and while Tareen's grinning like it's gonna be the best time ever, Kieta just lets out this deep sigh, like he truly can't believe these kids. Then the story drops straight to the docks, where everyone scrambles to get everything ready for the trip to Aldoba Island. The pier's packed all day, workers heave ropes, haul crates, and rush supplies toward the ship like it's about to leave any second. The worker slams on the brakes and blurts, no space left, none for all these heavy logs and steel frames. So he tells the other guy, Rest straight up told us to just bail and leave all that stuff sitting right there on the dock. The crew huddles around that massive lumber pile, totally baffled that they're abandoning building supplies, until they realize it's not a choice, it's an order. The worker just keeps staring at the pile like, yeah, no, there's no way I'm getting paid enough to figure this out. Beastman workers stare at a towering mountain of lumber dumped on the docks, and one of them can't help asking, What's Rest really planning to do with all these heavy supplies? Nearby, Rest leans in and tells Kieta. Glad everyone chose to stay with him, but Kieta turns to the young lord and drops the truth. They'd never even dreamed it would be him. I hope they ditch him and make him face everything by himself. Kieta tells them it all boils down to a promise he made to Rest's mother, the reason everything happened and the reason it still matters. Back then, he swore on everything that he'd stay by her son's side, always, no matter what came for them. Hearing his mom's name slams him back into old memories, and he suddenly realizes that he looked her in the eyes and made a huge promise himself, right before she slipped away. He swore he'd never unleash his real power recklessly, no way it could drag trouble in. Memory yanks him back to her bedside, and Lady Eliza leans in, demanding to know if he truly understands the weight of. She looked him dead in the eye and told him the truth. What he was born with wasn't some mystery blessing, it was an rank craft lets them build up their power like a weapon. Youngrest is left speechless, blurting out if that S-rank skill is really his. Then his mom just stares at him and confirms it with a simple, undeniable truth. She warns that once folks see a power like that, they'll absolutely twist it for selfish, dirty reasons. He's gotta swear he'll use it only when it's a true emergency. Then Rest locks eyes with her and promises her mother he'll stick to that. In this present night, Rest flashes a casual grin and tells Kieta he finally thinks this counts as a real emergency. Kieta stares at the young man with full-on respect and tells him, straight to his face, that everyone's betting on him right now. Rest nods like it's settled, then strides straight for the docks, leaving Kieta in the dust as he strides toward the cargo where he slams on the brakes right in front of a giant mountain of logs. He spots the workers sweeping the place clean, just like he expected. The wind howls through the quiet harbor and Rest stands alone, staring down a towering wall of stacked wood. A hard, focused look snaps into his eyes and he steels himself time to work, demanding if it's finally time to start. Just like that, massive wooden buildings and ladders shoot up from the ground as the construction kicks into full gear. The construction starts rolling. Beastmen workers just froze out in the morning light, mouths hanging open, completely stunned by what they're seeing. One snaps to the truth, every bit of the pile is totally gone, while the other swears those logs were right there last night, like he's daring the universe to prove him wrong. But the gang has already left everyone behind, eyes on Eldoba Island, pushing into the third day as they batter across the sea. On the deck, the sailors suddenly lock onto something in the far horizon and blast out loud shouts to grab everyone's attention. Rad sags for a breath, then bolts to the railing. When the maids crowd in too, Rad screams, "The island's finally in sight." It's not some ordinary island. This place is a colossal vertical rock wall, jutting so high it disappears straight into the clouds. Rest couldn't even look away. His eyes bulged wide as he stared at the massive scale of the place they were expected to call home. While everyone else screams about how cool it looks, Rest finally clicks. Kieta was right, this place is on a whole different level. The sailors start freaking out, whispering to each other, "Is it even possible to survive on a giant rock like that?" Rest cranes his neck at the peak as the crew panics, because there's no way they're going to explain any of this to Lord Bergs. Rest leans out, grinning like crazy at his brand new home, telling everyone this is the freedom he's been chasing his whole life. And as the ship vanishes over the horizon, someone blurts out the truth. Right now, it's just their tiny crew left on the shore. With island development finally kicking off, the rest of them chant for food first. Kieta's stomach is already snarling, but Agni cuts in and tells him he's forced to sit tight a little longer. In this world, some people are born with mind-blowing gifts, super rare powers that most people swear these miracles come straight from God, but the real truth about where they're actually born, that's the story you've never heard. And honestly, this part is still a total mystery. Nobody has figured it out for real. Rest, tossed out and using his mom's maiden name now, slams his fist down and screams for his power to kick in. He's still reeling from the fact they handed him an insanely rare S rank. So he digs in, refusing to budge as massive wooden beams blast through the air and slam into place, until his insane craft skill finally shows off. Kieta and the maids just freeze, staring in pure shock as the wood starts moving on its own like it's no big deal. Rest's power doesn't need anything fancy, he just has to keep the raw materials close enough for his gift to reach them. Rough wooden planks slam together like puzzle pieces, locking perfectly into place. Metal screws shoot up into the sky and spin around the whole site like they've been bewitched. The screws practically fly in on their own, biting into the wood and wrapping the whole job up in a flash. Rest steps back and proudly shows off the massive new pier he just finished. Then he grins and says his craft skill lets him build basically anything he wants, and Kieta beams with pride as the old butler leans in and tells the kid he absolutely nailed that build. Rest just winks and admits he couldn't pull it off without the blueprints Kieta crafted. Now the real secret's about to spill, because he's got one more thing to say. He doesn't have to be some legendary master builder or burn years studying how everything clicks together. His gift is totally busted, in the best way, because one touch from him and everything builds itself on autopilot. Just tap a blueprint, and his power instantly reads every detail like it's nothing. Tarine admits she'd already heard a few tales about this from Kieta, but watching it with her own eyes hits different. She turns to him and says, straight up, his power is absolutely mind-blowing. Vale beams at the finished pier, grinning that the structure is probably thrilled to finally be standing. And Turin can't even hold back her awe. She blurts out that rest is basically a myth for anyone who can pull this off. Agni just locks eyes on the results and it finally hits. Asterisk, that craft skill is such a massive deal for a reason. Rest just shrugs it off, scratching his head as he tells Kieta he's only relieved his power actually showed up when it mattered. Meanwhile, the old butler just stands there, beaming like he's bursting with pride, soaking in the sight of the kid crushing it. Kieta wastes 0 seconds and asks, should we move on to fixing that cliff next? And he tells Rest that the blueprints are already finished and locked in, ready to kick off the next phase. Rest is totally down for it. He gives the green light and fires him up to keep the momentum going as he snaps into focus and barks a command. His power ignites and materializes once more. So everyone steps back, eyes wide, as a massive wave of energy slams into the cliff and kicks off the remodel. Agni and Fail are totally stunned, so they fire back, asking if his power can erase things just as effortlessly as he creates them. Kieta stares hard at the gift and realizes, rest isn't the only thing it can do because whatever this present is packs way more power than just one simple feature. So Rest tries to crack it open, admits he can't spell out the specifics, then shrugs it off like, yeah, it's probably just a side effect of his real power. It all comes down to one thing. He needs raw materials just to build anything in the first place. To prove it, he holds his hand out and explains that with one simple touch, he can swallow any object straight into his inventory. And that's the whole plan. He's going to carve out the entire cliffside, turning it into a massive cave system just for them. Fail can't even believe it, still scratching her head over the physics. Where do all those massive rocks go once they're gone? Rest just smirks and tells her, chill, everything's safe, tucked inside me, like he's got materials stashed for the next big project. And now that the path is finally cleared, he snaps at the group that it's go time to head inside and start working. The plan is massive. They're gutting that cliff and building a real base there. Ramps, a cafeteria, proper drainage, and even an open-air bath blasted out at the very top. A gigantic blueprint sprawls out, mapping the cliff base down to the last detail, right from the top floor bath to the chimney, showing exactly where everything lands. And the whole place is stitched together by massive ramps and a crazy drainage system that keeps everything from getting flooded. Seal up that cave so not a single drop gets inside. Rest waltzes into action, thrusts out his hand, and carves the rock down to his exact vision like it's nothing. After a bit, Taurine finally swings in with a basket and urges everyone to drop everything and take a well-deserved meal break. She grins and tells them, I've got Agni's homemade sandwiches and piping hot soup ready for all of you. Rest is totally on board, swearing the timing is perfect because he'd just started to feel it. The whole crew crowds around a flickering lantern in the cave, tearing into their meal like the night can't touch them. Rest grabs his sandwich, then carefully pokes right into the middle with which makes Fail lurch in close, then lean in with a sharp, suspicious stare and demand what he thinks he's doing. Rest's mind goes blank as the truth hits. He's not being weird at all, he's just picking the pickles out of his lunch. Agni snaps, tells Rest to cut it out, and says being a picky eater is not the kind of thing a lord should be caught doing so. So Rest looks totally guilty and blurts out an apology, but he's not done. He's still pushing to defend his side of the story. He looks irritated and snaps at Agni like, what does my food even have to do with building the land? But Agni cuts him off, no hearing it, telling him keeping him healthy is part of her job as his cook. Realizing he's not getting this win, Rest throws in the towel and finally starts mowing down the pickles. He looks absolutely miserable as he chews, but Kieta just stands there grinning like it's the best day of his life. Later, Fail shows up while Rest's stuck doing the dishes, and he asks if he can help her out by grabbing some fresh water. Rest snaps at her to give him one more second, then thrusts out his hand and fires up water magic to start it, right as. And just like that, clean water starts blasting out of his palm, splashing into the huge pitcher. He rushes it to the very top in a blink, and suddenly everything gets a whole lot easier for the girls. Agni's eyes widen in shock when she realizes that even plain water can be stashed inside his magic inventory through Rest. She asks if he just filled it with seawater, and Rest snaps that he's been secretly doing it quietly this whole time. Every single day, he quietly hauled water from his family's well and secretly built up a stockpile. Agni's mind can't process it. He blurts out, seriously, is my storage limitless, or is this water going to go bad in here eventually? She can't help wondering if it'll get tossed into his other stuff, but Rest shuts it down and tells her it stays completely separate, so it'll never spoil. Rest admits he's tried it, and once it's his, it lets him stash stuff forever. Forever, yeah, he tells himself it's kind of scary. He tells the girls they're set on water for ages, and Turin practically can't stop showing how impressed he is. Fail suddenly lights up with a bold idea and asks, can I finally take a bath now that we've got all this extra water? So Rest tells her to hand it over to him, and he'll fix everything on the spot. Next thing you know, they've set up a massive outdoor bath under the stars, and everyone's straight up losing it with joy. The girls finally soak up the sunlight and scrub the road dirt off, totally relaxed, grinning like they've just been reborn. Stars glitter and the moon looms above a silent cliffside as the night drags on, slower and heavier by the second. Morning slams into the island, and it's finally go time for the whole crew to get moving and make things happen. Rest's call for a break drives Kieta, and the maids straight to a gigantic rock wall wedged at the cliff's base. He taps the spot and breaks it down, hollow it out, and they'll slip straight into the island's very heart. Rest fires up the crew like, ready to roll, and Fail instantly goes full hype mode, whipping her hand up in the air. Right before they start digging, Fail halts mid-mission and grabs Rest to ask what their new home is really going to look like. Rest repeats house like it just clicked, then blurts Fail, what kind of place are you dreaming about? She doesn't hold back for a second. She's screaming that she wants a gigantic, super fancy mansion with flowers spilling everywhere. Rest grins and tells her, leave it to me, then stretches his hand toward the stone as Agni stares. He slaps his hand onto the solid rock, and a tiny beep bursts out the moment his magic ignites. The crew finally makes their play, barrels straight into a massive cave, and you can practically hear them fail cheering like they just cracked the island wide open. But 6 hours later, reality crashes down on them when they finally see the trail ends in a total dead end. Agni glances over at the others and asks, so we're really stuck here? And the whole group just awkwardly nods like, yeah, maybe. So yeah, the dream of a fancy house gets iced for now, and the whole crew hauls up camp to live in the cave instead. After a few brutal days of grinding work, they finally smash through the island's outer wall and punch a hole clean through. Fail is the first to spot what's over there. He goes wild, screaming about the trees as they yank the wagon free. Rest sweeps his gaze around and lets out a breath of relief. We made it, he says, officially starting his new life under his mother's maiden name. Agni lets out a breathy sigh and admits she was starting to get scared they might be stuck in that cave for good. The whole group huddles at the wood's edge, eyes locked on a forest that dwarfs everything they thought they'd find, like it's about to swallow them whole. Terrain scans the thick forest, and it hits him how wrong everything feels. There's not a single chirp in the air, just eerie silence. Turin stared out at the silent forest, his mind racing. Are they truly the only people on this island, or is everyone else in on the same hush? Kieta rubs his beard, eyes narrowing as he digs into everything he knows about this place. The whole group huddles by the carriage in those creepy woods, and Kieta blurts out that none of this shows up in the official records. Then the original investigation got cancelled. Halfway through, he blurts out that none of that old info can be trusted at all. The crew barrels ahead, smashing through the dense trees like they mean it. Trees swallowed the path as they drove their horses farther into the unknown. Rest goes still for a heartbeat, then his face snaps into a completely different expression. He tells everyone, if those old records are trash, then fine. Guess you'll be the ones taking charge of the investigation yourselves. So his very first move, he plows through the trees, carving a path just to get that carriage rolling again. Fail spots the perfect opening for Rest to flex his crafting skills and tells her, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But when they finally push through into the clearing, all they see is a mountain of shattered stone and crushed, ruined buildings. Fail whips his head around at the giant chaos and blurts, what is this place even supposed to be? While Agni rips into the fact that the house is basically a complete wreck, everyone stares there in stunned silence. They soak it all in until Kieta steps in and drops the truth. These are ancient ruins left behind by some long-gone expedition crew. He's betting they'll strike something actually useful if they start digging through the trash. Rest is fully on board and basically begs you to check it out for sure. Agni tells them the girls will cook up the food, while the guys scour the area and catch their breath. Bess snaps on a mask to dodge the dust, then gets ready to start hauling away those brutal heavy beams and he hurled the shattered stone aside, clearing the room's center in one savage sweep. Kieta stares at the wreckage and snaps, those wild beasts really tore everything up. So Rest wipes his forehead and says they've got to warn the maids and make sure they stay safe. He wipes the sweat from his face and grins, thank God they scoped the place first before they ripped everything down. He spots a battered set of old stairs climbing into the pitch black of the second floor, and so he climbs those creaky steps, one tense step at a time, hunting for what's hiding right at the very top. Kieta chases after him, and the two of them stop dead in front of a massive wooden door that just looms there, heavy and that door is sealed tight. Rest asks where they are, and Kieta's gut says they're standing in the commander's office, which means because there's still a real shot that the investigation files people will die to find are hidden away somewhere in the shadows. Kaido tells them straight up, the kingdom had to scrap the entire expedition because the Empire blindsided them with a brutal surprise attack, storming off leaving piles of research untouched behind, because this was about to get huge. So he gives a nod and says he finally understands why this room matters so much. He considers just using his craft to absorb the door and be done with it, but he slams the idea down, at least for now. Rest points out that if he absorbs it, he could totally wreck the papers inside, and Kieta nods because his Rest starts staring at the handle up close, then leans in to study the keyhole's shape, like he's about to figure out if it's something he recognizes. He tells Kieta, "Don't worry, I can probably make a key for it." Kieta's brows knit with worry, but the Rest grins and boasts about his craft skill, which it forges the perfect key. Then it slides straight in and click. The door snaps open with a loud jolt. Kieta shot him a sharp look and demanded, "When did you learn all that sketchy thief stuff?" Rest goes all jittery and blurts out, "We had the same locks at school," so he basically puts it together on the spot, but Kieta can't shake the question, why would some noble kid be messing with locks at all? Rest tells him, "Save the lecture for later." Then she finally charges forward and swings the door wide open. The two of them stride into the room, and a massive cloud of dust erupts from the floor like the place just woke up. Kieta stares at the almost empty shelves and says, point blank, that this place has been picked clean. Rest, sprawled across the desk, realizes the place is completely stripped clean, and there's not a single thing left that's even worth grabbing. He lunges for one of the drawers, but it screeches open, so loud it throws him off mid-step as he starts to. He suddenly realizes the drawer's caught on something, leans in for a closer look, and blurts out that something's definitely jammed inside. Rest finally pries it open and spots a tiny notepad. Then Kieta realizes it must have slipped in there by accident. They yank it open and boom, pages spill out blanketed in messy handwriting and chaotic scribbles, showing. Rest reads it aloud, saying those notes are pointing to an investigation. Could indigenous people be living nearby? Kieta tries to keep the vibe peaceful, but Rest is already thinking 3 steps ahead, saying they'll have to go introduce themselves the second anyone's around. Agni leans in and grabs the notepad with her eyes, spotting a detail that the Rest completely misses. She yanks him to a stop and snaps, "Hold up, this sentence you just read, it's crossed out." Agni drops his gaze to the notebook and nods along, saying the Rest is 100% right about what. Rest looks dead serious as he points out that the official country date won't even mention a single word about the natives who live here. He's thinking the original team might have gotten mixed up by something else, then crossed the notes out later. Kieta rubs his chin, pulls out the investigation team's report, and stares off like he's trying to crack the mystery of how they swore nobody ever set foot on that island before, but now it suddenly feels seriously off, like something's changed. Vale looks straight up disappointed. He points it out and basically goes, "Man, it's like the team never even managed to crack what the natives were telling them." She leans in close and asks Rest, "Can I see the notepad too?" Rests down her worries, tells her it's all good, and hands the little book over. So Kieta blurts out, "Should we just push ahead, like someone's out there waiting to handle whatever's ahead?" She drops the book from her face and stares at it, wondering if they're truly the only souls left alive on this island. Vale confirms she's found something, and the Rest finally looks over, shock hitting her hard as her eyes catch what she just saw. Sudden discovery hits him like a shock, and as the notebook is lifted into blazing sunlight, the narrator squints and studies the paper's texture up close. Vale yells for everyone to stop and says one of the pages feels weirdly bumpy under your fingers, so Rest leaned in and it hit them all at once, realization. She finally clicks she's right, and then she asks, "Wait, are these marks just indentations from someone who wrote on this page before me?" He spots the page sitting right after the one that got ripped out, and that tells him something huge, because they might actually crack the missing text just by reading those marks alone. Rest reaches out and asks for a pencil. Vale shoots one over, then quips, "Will a colored one do for this?" He drags the pencil across the paper, and boom, the hidden letters the first pen pressed in beneath the surface suddenly glare back at him. And the entire group goes dead silent as the notes spell out everything. There's a spring deep in the woods, someone's riding a monster, and a child is living there. Then the final piece of the hidden message clicks into place, and boom, the truth comes out. The person stranded on that island is an elf. The crew starts getting paranoid, wondering who or what might be lurking out there. Staring at it, they couldn't decide, Was it an elf or even a fairy? Every time she fails, she instantly gets all fired up, blaring that she really wants to be friends with them as he just keeps staring at her, grinning like he's in on the biggest secret. I was so damn happy to see her brimming with energy. Agni hesitates for a second, shooting a worried look at the others, asking if whoever's out there could be terrifying and Turin. Green can't stop worrying. What if they can't even catch a single word the other person says? Admits they might not even speak the same language, but she's already got a plan for it. She figures that if they just share a little right from her side, then maybe everything changes. Then he shared his favorite snacks and sweet treats with them. Then it'll all be fine. She flashes a lollipop, grins, and swears they're all going to get along perfectly. Kieta keeps pushing to get Rest's attention, but Rest just bursts into laughter and says he's really praying that things work out for that. Rest leans in close, whispers to Kieta that he refuses to scare the girls with anything serious. Kieta just gives a quick nod and shoots back, "Yeah, I got it." Agni pulls the group aside, asks if they should grab a bite, and fails there, dropping the whole plan like it never stood a chance. Is totally down, yelling, "Yeah, start eating A." Agni slams down a stack of plates into the other person's hands, and she tries to hand off the job, but Fail doesn't let that slide. She promises, "I've got this," then snatches them up. Rest looks completely overwhelmed and worn out, and then tells Kieta they're in a real jam, and Kieta just nods along like, "Yeah, we're totally screwed." Kieta blurts out that if humans were the ones doing the cleanup, they'd be clearing out Then Rest knew the elves would never just sit back and let it all go down like that. He breaks it down like this, because the elves live in they live in the forest and wield way more magic than humans ever could, and they're so proud it practically radiates off them. Even Rest brings up that the kingdom's stuck in a total nightmare, desperately trying to negotiate with them and getting nowhere fast. He swears he's really praying the elves aren't the reason the last investigation collapsed, because the official records show that the survey team on Aldoba Island straight up ditched their mission and vanished. Rest and Kieta just freeze, eyes wide with worry, realizing if they keep going, they're walking straight into disaster. Kieta tells the crew, "Don't worry, I'm keeping my eyes on the forest." Rest tells Kieta he's got his back, and then Rest decides to dive into those notes and study them for a while. Two tiny birds are just chilling beside the crumbling ruins, like they own the silence. Kieta hustles to work and double-checks every single material he's about to use. Kieta shouts to Rest that the foundation inspection is finally done, and Rest, grateful, tells him thanks right as the moment cuts off into a, "Alright, it's finally go time. Lord of Elba Island has to step up right now." Rest leans in like he's about to blow the doors off and tells Kieta, "Alright, it's time, we're starting." He breaks down how he carved the whole structure by hardening the stone he hauled out of the tunnel he dug. Kieta shoves the blueprints into Rest's hands, and as Rest drags his palm over them, he blurts, "Loaded, done." And he slams his power into motion, barks his craft command, and just like that, the ruins get drenched. And then, like a thunderclap, light crashes into place, hammering itself into a massive structure. A few hours later, the girls are right there, just staring, mouths agape, and completely blown away. And that break lets them know this is it, it's official. Their new home was a stunning mansion standing directly on top of the ancient ruins. Bale is freaking out with pure excitement because they finally snag a roof over their heads, but Agni is still reeling. Rest is already mulling over how his new family. Now the family can finally kick back and live in real comfort. First, they head straight for Kieta's room, basically a massive library, stacked to the brim with every book he's got. Then they slide into Terran's room, right into her walk-in closet. A closet so huge it could swallow an entire wardrobe. And Fail's room is a tiny secret hideout, complete with its own attic nook, so it just feels like a hidden base that leaves. Agni can't stop staring, and then he flashes a huge thumbs up like everything's perfect. It's time to dive into Agni's room. She shoves the door wide open and stops dead in her tracks, staring in shock as she blurts out, "What is this play?" Even the place itself feels like a gift, because this whole room was built special by the builder, so when Agni finally peeks inside, she absolutely loses it. She's never laid eyes on anything this cute in her life. Turns out the whole room is stuffed, like jammed to the max, with a giant mountain of plush toys, and it only gets crazier from. They're practically glowing with pride, because he crafted every single one of them with nothing but pure skill. Fail erupts into clapping and cheering because the surprise hit dead on, then Rest starts thanking her for the help, but Agni just freezes in place, drowning in pure shock. Agni acts like she's unbothered and snaps that she never said any of that about them. Said they were cute, but Fail just bursts into laughter because she knows what's really going on. That place is straight up high-tech. Up on the roof sits a huge water tank that constantly refills. Then it funnels clean water through ceramic pipes to the bath and the dining room. The rest of the manor's just as solid. There's even a carriage house and a grand lobby with it. Chieta built a moat to keep the monsters locked out. The lights don't stay on for long, magic stones are pricey and a nightmare to find, so he only drops them in the shared spots like the kitchen. Rest scrambles to finish the last of the lighting, then grins and says, "That's it, should be good now." They looked downright pleased with how everything finally fell into place. Agni lit up with the new kitchen setup, practically beaming as he said cooking was about to get way easier. She thanks Rest for everything he's done, and he only smiles back like it means nothing. He shrugs and tells him flat out it wasn't a big deal at all. Later, Rest yanks Chieta aside and whispers, "We need to talk, what comes next?" And when Chieta asks if anything's wrong, he breaks down the chaos, then hits you with the worst news. They've burned through nearly all their building materials and time's running out. They worked those cotton and hemp hard to get everyone's rooms ready, but now they're running bone dry on supplies. Supplies Rest signature. They push for a quick ride on a ship to the nearby town so they can finally haul in supplies and restock. He lays it all out for them, then leans in and tells the crew, "I'm counting on you, make this trip happen." Especially because the Dine family didn't just hand them a little money. They gave them a real chunk of startup cash to get the whole operation rolling. If they don't rein it in, those funds are going to run dry sooner or later, no question. Rest keeps the chat rolling, telling Chieta to slow down and catch their breath before they head out to the nearby town, because they really need to. With the plan locked in, Rest decides to scout the area for real local resources they can actually use for trade. And then he calls it a day on all those fancy lordly duties, and Chieta nods in agreement, and suddenly it's like, okay, no more running around. They finally kick back, sit down, and dig into a proper dinner. Smoke curls out of the chimney as the day finally starts to fade away. Everyone crowds around a table piled high with food, and when the room falls quiet, Foodrest leads them, urging them to give thanks for being alive and for the meal they're about to tear into. Everyone jumps in together as the prayer rises. Rest catches Tarine looking stunned, so he quickly tells him that saying grace like that is a huge tradition in his mother's family. He flashes a huge grin, then thanks the entire crew like, "You all are the best for rolling with this." The crew digs into the night's feast, hungry and all in. A steaming bowl of chicken and vegetable soup. Turin tells everyone that Lady Eliza would be absolutely thrilled. That rest is what keeps the Kyle territory's traditions roaring to life as the journey continues, moving. Agni chimes in mid-service, plating the soup like it's a ritual, and tells everyone that saying thanks for food is the kind of habit that builds the soul. She tells Rest to wolf down every last bite, no leftovers, not a crumb. Turin holds up a pickle and practically orders himself to eat those too, making the rest panic. Rest throws his hands up and swears he's definitely skipping the pickles. Chieta jumps in, warning him, "Stop being picky. If you keep it up, you'll never grow up big." As the sun sinks below the horizon, a bright, joyful moon hangs in the sky, smiling like it owns the night. Over the house, the air finally settles as everyone drops into place. Next morning, the sun rips through the clouds and spills across the world like a brand new day just kicked the door open. Day starts with him kicking back and staring out the window, soaking up that perfect weather as he daydreams. Rest is staring out the window when bam, he spots something. A hulking, hairy blur shoots past the mansion and he's left staring like, what the heck was that? Outside, the whole street feels silent, but inside that house, things are about to explode, because once those doors open, everything changes. As Risturza rallies the maids, Fail steps in and barks, "Why are you calling everyone like this?" Rest starts laying it all out, explaining what's going on. Then he says that earlier this morning, he spotted this enormous, round furball roaming around just outside the mansion walls. It might be a rare monster they've been whispering about from that island, but it all falls apart. He looks brutally skeptical and straight up asks. He fires back, so what are you even talking about with this furball? Rest swears it looked exactly like the soft, fluffy stuff sitting on her head. While she listened to his story, the round hair accessories she was wearing started to fail. Rest just freezes, totally baffled as he stares at the round little fluff balls, then it hits him. These aren't random furballs at all. Agni jumps in and blurts out that Fail didn't just find them. He stumbled onto these little guys earlier that morning while she was knee-deep in laundry, and failing makes her admit the truth straight from the heart. She figured she totally messed up the Rest's clothes, scrubbed them way too hard, cranked out a whole swarm of lint balls until it hit her. Turns out they weren't people at all. They were tiny birds hopping around the whole time. Fail starts panicking, wondering if those poor souls are just lost, and then Rest. Rage nods along, thinking the exact same thing as Agni just fixes her gaze on one of those round little birds like, what am I supposed to see here? She clocks the whole situation as insanely weird and straight up, asks the group if they're really planning to keep these things around. A thunderous blast suddenly slams into the house and the Rest and Fail, panicked, fling themselves to the window to find out what the heck is happening. He takes a breather outside, then hypes everyone up and announces that the giant furball monster he spotted earlier is finally coming their way. As Kieta watches, he blurts out that this sound instantly drags him back to the monsters he battled back when he was still an adventurer. Kieta drops the bombshell. This monster is a cockatrice. A hungry little bird with razor-sharp claws swoops in right where you need it. Usually they look way meaner, so seeing one this fluffy feels completely unreal. He's sure that massive bird is out here chasing after its chicks, like it's hunting for every last one of them, which that checks out. Fail had already bolted ahead, brought the little ones back, and handed them right to their parent. Even though she swore it was over, that bird just wouldn't budge. It stayed right there. The entire family finally packed it in and settled right down in the carriage house. Kieta stares at the creature, then blurts that its bizarre behavior gives it away. Turns out the parent bird isn't just nesting, it's desperately trying to vanish from whatever's out there. Even though the birds look like they're mad squished in the horse stable, Fail is just relieved they're all safe. Kieta fixes his glasses, goes silent, and starts wrestling with the terrifying question, what could possibly scare something like that? Kieta snaps to Lord Rest that for everyone's safety, they've got to rush back inside the mansion right now. Right by the trees, a hulking beast looms so hard the forest monsters feel like they're finally crawling in on the manor. Agni is still sprawled out, kicking back like nothing's happening, right in the middle of those endless fluffy feathers splayed everywhere, blissfully clueless to the deadly danger waiting beyond the door while Rest hears a snap of noise from the woods and can't stop wondering if that same dire wolf was stalking the cockatrice earlier. The young Lord of Elba Island starts to panic, then blurt out that he'll unleash his crafting powers and forge a cage. But Kieta steps in front of him, yanking his attention to the fact that this dire wolf is way too dangerous, so the boy should hang back and let his butler deal with it. The beast kicks into a brutal sprint, and its massive face suddenly crashes into their vision as it barrels closer and butler Kieta lets out a rough grunt, tenses up like a coiled spring and braces to shield his master from the fight about to break loose. Rest panics and screams, "Is it coming for us?" But Kieta yanks out his weapon and roars that they just need to drive it off. But then the terrifying monster lets out this soft whine, acting nothing like anyone in that room ever expected. Rest clocks it instantly. This massive beast isn't even fighting back. Kieta leans in and says the creature looks like it's hanging on by a thread, and that animal just looms over the guy on the ground, and now Resta has to stop and ask Kieta what the heck is really happening. They finally spot it. This beast isn't attacking at all, it's just licking the passed-out kid's face, and the second they connect the dots, they realize it was trying to help all along. With it being an emergency, Rest snaps that he'll unleash his crafting magic and whip up a full infirmary right on the spot. So they can get the kid into a real bed, and they tell the others he can conjure whatever they need to treat the patient. Tareen gives the kid a quick once-over and says it's shocking, he's out cold, but he's not got any serious injuries. But she still has to do They push for a more thorough exam just to be safe, and that's when everything leads straight to her turning point, her sprinting through the room, telling everyone that she'll have to strip the kid's clothes off just to finish the checkup. Chiron shrugs it all off, tells them it's totally fine, and moves to give the kid some space since he's a boy. Rest slipped away, still baffled as he asked how she could be so sure. She just grinned and told him, "I already checked." Taurine breaks into a quiet laugh as she hustles to get all the kids settled in. She clocked the kid's outfit and realized it wasn't cheap at all. The stitching and tailoring were insanely well done. "I'm trying to ignore all this, but I can't stop myself from noticing the kids got the cutest little ears. The moment she spots those sharp, pointed ears, it clicks. There's absolutely an elf in their midst." Now that an elf's in the mix, the whole group starts panicking. Who among them actually knows how to speak Elvish? Leading. Then he finally paused to stare at Kieta and demanded to know if he'd ever heard that kind of language or read that kind of literature. Kieta peers at the bed, and no joke, he realizes he actually knows a bit of Elvish too. Agni steps up and says the kid looks way too weak, so she's gonna whip up some soup. Then she blurts out, "I just pray this kid isn't the type to be a picky eater like." Rust bristles instantly and snaps, demanding to know why she had to drag his name into it like that. Vale's eyes snap to Rest and Agni, and the glare on his face looks downright vicious, like the start of a problem he can't ignore. Annoyed as hell, he shoots both of them a glare and snaps that they're way too loud, then demands they pipe down before the whole place blows up. The elf kid finally cracks his eyes open, then stares up from the bed like he's stranded, utterly lost, totally out of his mind. And the whole crew huddles over him, eyes locked so tight it's downright creepy, so the kid jerks back and yells, totally shocked they'd show up in force. Rest tries to soothe him, muttering that he probably just spooked the kid, then the thought hits him hard. Do they even speak the same language? Because right? The boy just locks eyes with him, then, after a beat, the kid softly asks where FAL she is, and that's when Agni finally snaps into it. This kid has been understanding every word. Rest beams at him and asks, "You mean that wolf from earlier?" Then explains it's staying just outside for now. He keeps the chat rolling, says the wolf looked starving, and wastes no time grabbing food so it can eat. Rest shoots a hand out to introduce himself, admitting he's been around only a short while, but technically he runs the place, even if Kieta thinks that claim is half-baked at best. He locks eyes with the kid and asks if he'd be cool enough to share a little bit about who he really is. The boy goes dead quiet for a split second, looking totally overwhelmed. Then he finally snaps into it and tells him, "I'm Korotoki." Korotoko blurts out what really went down. He says he stomped on a slate of flour just outside their village. Reste stares blankly, clueless. He stares at the plant while the kid lays out the local legend, "Step on it and bam, you're cursed, and every ounce of your magic power vanishes." Korotoko raises his arm and shows them what he means. His skin is pitch black from the curse. So Kieta stares at the dark hand and blurts out that sure, humans might hold up, but losing magic is a total catastrophe. For elves, it's survival mode. Magic is literally the only thing keeping them alive. And Kieta looks dead serious as the boy immediately warns everyone. He shouts for everyone to stay back, warning that if anyone gets too close, the curse will slam right onto them too. He ended up bolting out of his home. He couldn't stand the thought of being a burden or dragging his parents into trouble, so he just ran away. Rest looks straight up skeptical about the whole curse thing, telling the group he's never heard a whisper of it back at school, and he can't wrap his head around it. One random flower under his foot and boom, the damage is insane. Fail listens. He hears the story and can't stop wondering if there's some real logic behind it. Maybe it's nothing more than pollen from that flower. A flower sparks the whole situation, and Kieta hears the plan, nodding like, "Yeah, that's totally possible." Rest doesn't stop, he keeps pushing the idea forward. They nod and explain it. Maybe the curse story is just what folks call a nasty allergic reaction. Russ whips around to Tarine and asks if she can get a closer look at the kid. She doesn't hesitate and says she's already on it. He straight up challenges her. Does she really know her stuff when it comes to medicine and sickness? So Taurine tells him she poured hours into digging up every scrap of info she could for Lady Eliza's illness back then, and after all that studying, she's convinced she can finally crack it. She tells the whole crew, "Trust me, by later tonight I'll have real results you can sink your teeth into." Day drifts by, and as the sun begins to slip toward the horizon, it spills gold over the house while Taurine finally bursts back in to prove she was right. Turns out it's nothing supernatural, just an allergy to the flower pollen. Rest takes it all in, realizing that terrifying curse is nothing but a medical problem, and Agni nods along, agreeing. Taurine breaks it down and tells you what she knows. Turns out that plant is a super rare flower. She leans in and says the pollen only works on regular people, but it cuts off right there. She sneezes and it absolutely wrecks the elves. She freezes for a heartbeat, then blurts, "Seriously, is there even any medicine that can cure an allergy this bad?" She looks downright crushed, staring at the lack of options like it just robbed her of hope. Taurine admits she's got none of the right medicine on her, and Rest feels completely trapped. But then she blurts that all the recipes are in her medical book, and Rest immediately tells her to let him get a look. Then he realizes the real trouble isn't the journey anymore. It's tracking down the exact medicinal herbs they need. Rest grabs the book and starts ripping through the pages, hunting for the exact section he needs. He slams on a page packed with a drawing of that exact herb, then dives into a whole mountain of notes on how to use it. Rest leans in and studies the instructions like her life depends on it, hunting for the next move. Rest just stands there with his eyes shut, but inside his head, everything's firing at full speed as he desperately tries to remember. It suddenly hits him when he digs through his inventory and spots an item that matches the one from the book perfectly. He yanks up the complete list of everything his craft skill has swallowed so far and starts ripping through the endless, random entries one by one. The materials he'd scavenged. He thinks he must have snagged that herb by pure accident while he was busy building those islands. On Maryland's roads, Rest shrugs it off and tells himself, "I don't care how I got it, just pull it out," instead of "Stop drowning in overthinking." He thrusts out his hand and fires up his power. Bright sparkles burst into the air like lightning. Items begin to materialize, and there they are right before our eyes. A bunch of plant bulbs suddenly burst into existence right before Taurine's eyes, and Rest shoots a question. Are these the ones? Taurine's face lights up the second she grabs it. She yells, "This is exactly what we need." She's so hyped she blurts out to the others that she's starting to make the medicine right this second, then she just cuts herself off like, well, F. Fail and Agni stood nearby, grinning as both of them looked so damn happy that it finally felt like everything was working out. They finally hunker down in that massive island mansion, the kind of place built for secrets and built to keep them trapped together. Inside, Agni leans in and asks Korotoko if he's into the soup she cooked. He grins and calls it delicious, tells her thanks, but he's still totally stunned, because he never even imagined a house like this could exist in a place like this. Agni just grins and tells the kid they only popped in recently, just got everything settled. Korotoko just keeps repeating. He's still stuck on it, recently. He can't even process it, so when that fail confirms it, he just goes, no way. Agni's curiosity kicks in, so he starts grilling the kid about where he's from and what life is like in the village, wondering if any other elves are hanging around his area, while he stares at where he calls home. Agni shuts him down with a nope, and Korotoko fires back, saying his village is built for half-elves, and yep, he's half-human too. Fail leans in and says it. Suddenly the kid realizes he's just like Agni, and he whips his eyes to Agni, stunned, as he blurts out, asking if she's a half-blood too. Agni leans in and explains she's a feline beastman half-blood, and Korotoko finally clicks. Agni blurts out that the medicine won't be ready for a while, so she turns to Korotoko and asks, "Anything else you want before we go?" Can't sit still, he keeps begging to eat while they're stuck waiting. She blurted that she wanted chiffon cake, and right in that moment Agni shut her down, because Fail wasn't the one who was asking. Fail refuses the shutdown, then starts hyping the food like a hype man, claiming Agni's cake is just so soft, so creamy, so insanely delicious that it sounds like the greatest thing on earth. Korotoko blurts that he wants to try it too, and Agni immediately agrees, even though deep down she's totally fine. Agni figures it out fast. If they're gonna bake, they've gotta dash out and hunt down some eggs. Then it hits her, everything falls apart because there aren't any chickens anywhere around here. She can't stop overthinking it, and the moment she does, she spots something even stranger unfolding, like, just look. She cranes her eyes across the cliffs, and shocking, there isn't a single bird in the sky anywhere on this whole island. Agni shoots a glance over and asks if they should go straight to Lord Rest to confront this bird mess, and Fail nods instantly while Taryn leans in and tells the little kid, just hang tight 1 minute. The bright sun keeps pounding the island as days fly by, and before you know it, Long Koritoko is outside, laughing up a storm as he wraps a huge hug around a giant wolf and looks totally blissful. Rest keeps an eye on him from the side, and when she smiles, she tells everyone the kid looks completely better now. He gives Taryn all the credit, swearing the whole thing happened only because of her miracle cure. A weird, ear-splitting squawk suddenly blasts through the air, and right then Rest and Taryn freeze mid-task. The two of them stare over with the kid, hunting for the truth, totally lost, like they have no clue what's going on. Agni just stood there crushed to the core, and Koritoko couldn't take it, so he demanded to know what was going on. She finally tracked down a cockatoo monster, but now her heart's in pieces because the bird won't open up to her, no matter how hard she tries. Rest glances at Agni and blurts out, "Yeah, it's adorable, but don't forget that bird is still a monster." He tells her again, seriously, don't poke at it, but Agni can't take his eyes off how fluffy it is. At this point, she's completely obsessed. She keeps saying she just wants to bury herself in those soft feathers and never come up for air. Koritoko snaps into action and yells to her, promising to show her the right way to make friends with a cockabird. The whole group looks totally lost at the name, and then the kid shrugs and explains, "It's not what you think, our village just calls that kind of cock." Then he declares if we can somehow keep a few, we're set, we'll have a steady stash of eggs. His Rest and Turin lock eyes with him for a beat, staring like they've missed something huge and they're totally out of the loop. Rest decides to move forward. He's set on building the chicken coop Koritoko talked about, while Kieta steps up and slaps down the blueprints he already finished, all matched to the kid's description. Koritoko nods and fully backs the design, but warns them that a stone-only coop could make the bird quit laying eggs. Rest shoots a look at the monster bird and its chicks, and even though they look all tough and terrifying, he can tell they're fragile as glass. He tells everyone to step back for a second, then jumps straight into his crafting skills, so fast that before the new chicken even finishes its coop is completely done and ready to launch. Switching to food, Agni declares it's all done and plops a gigantic, fluffy white cake right in front of everyone. Koritoko throws himself into his absolute first attempt. Kieta takes one look at it and is completely blown away by how insane it tastes, then starts rambling about some crazy details. He starts talking about the birds, how they act just like a cockatrice, especially when it comes to guarding the fertilized eggs. So just hurl the unfertilized ones out of the nest before they can do anything. Agni's grinning like he just won. He's calling it awesome because they finally snagged a real, steady source of protein for real. Vale breaks into laughter and jabs the point that the egg they scored is basically the size of Rest's whole face. Rest nods along, grinning, saying, "With a haul like that, we're set for food for ages." Smoke curls from the chimney of the house, while the sun hangs high in the sky. Heiter drops a hint about the core. Toko's parents are probably sitting on pins and needles right now, absolutely terrified something's wrong. And then, like the moment finally clicks, everything swings into action. The Rest decides it's time to drag the kid back to his village. Then he blurts out, since they're all stuck living on the same island now, it's basically. He stepped up like he owned the place, then went over to introduce himself to everyone. Agni lights up with the thought and goes, "Yeah, perfect, we totally need to get them a gift." She says we should split the fluffy cake she just baked. Turin suddenly lunges in and demands they go fetch some slate-of-flower medicine. She's dead sure the villagers are going to need it, and they're going to thank her for it because it's going to be insanely useful for them, and Koritoko suddenly gets choked up and pours out his gratitude, thanking everyone for being so kind to him. Koritoko glances up, uneasy, and blurts, "Are we really good to head back home right now, or am I just going to end up messing things up for everyone?" And Taryn shoves a. She gives him a gentle head pat, tells him not to worry, and smiles that he's all healed up now, everything's going to be just fine. The kid just smirks with pure relief, like those words finally took the weight off his chest. Rest slams down the final decision and yells for everyone to get ready. They're officially rolling out for Koritoko's village. The entire crew crowds onto the tower balcony, soaking in their brand new home's view before they finally head out. Rest stares down at the magic stone in his palm, and the heavy truth hits him. He's the lord of this island now. He's just standing there doing that deep thinking face, like he's about to start a when-to-ray thought. Tyrene strides up to him and asks, right in his face, if something's really bothering him. He just grinned, said good morning, and admitted he wasn't being weird. He was testing if he could actually store those magic stones they'd found. He keeps raving that these stones fuel everything, from lights to the whole setup, so of course he's certain they've gotta pack them, but trust me, this isn't even the half of it. Turin glances at the pocket watch in his hand and it clicks. This is his mother's old clock, and it rests there, quietly confirming the truth. Turin stares at the battered old clock and blurts out just how nostalgic it all makes him feel. Rest warned that it would spell trouble for real. Right as they were escorting Korotoko, the clock's magic started to run dry, and he had to jump in fast and fix the whole mess before it all fell apart. Then he leans in and fires a question at Tyrene. Tell me, are the preparations for our departure actually on track? Everything's fully ready, and once he's set to leave, they're heading straight for the village. The head maid shoots him a quick heartfelt thank you. Are you really ready for whatever wild ride is waiting ahead? After that, they already double-checked where the spring was going from up on the tower, and he's sure Korotoko will nail the way back as soon as they finally hit that spot. He stares into the distance, mind racing over every brutal detail of their mission. Turns out those notes about an elf kid and the part about someone mounting a monster were the real giveaway. Turns out Korotoko told him those notes were meant for his people, because his villagers normally hunt while riding straight on wolves. That spring deep in the forest, turns out it's sitting right beside Korotoko's village, and because those old expedition notes they never once named the village, so yeah, it's probably tucked even farther out than they'd guessed. He glances over at the others and suggests that maybe the two of them should take over the escort for Korotoko. While all the logistics were getting sorted, his strange hobby of appreciating bridges quietly got noted. Rest leans in with a wary warning, saying the island's got monsters so brutal they could rip the investigation buildings apart. So he's basically convinced the road ahead is crawling with danger. Korotoko just stares at him, totally baffled, like, why are you freaking out? There aren't any monsters here. Telling them it's totally safe, because the holy beast has it all covered. He points at the beast and says it's the guardian that's been mowing down real threats and keeping the forest safe, while Rest just stands there lost in thought, staring at the holy beast like, what are you really all about? Korotoko talks like everything's calm, but the whole time he's basically telling you the sacred beast is always watching everything. It quietly keeps everyone away so no one storms in and trashes the forest. Kid blurts out that the beast keeps showing up at the shrine by the spring again and again, so the whole village drops offerings for it the moment they get the chance. Rest can't believe how incredible it sounds, then suddenly, he starts getting jittery, terrified the beast is going to snap once it realizes he mowed down a whole load of trees with his magic. Kieta stood there, soaking it all in like it was burning into her mind. And once they confirm this beast really is keeping the area safe, they can finally breathe out and relax for real. So he decides to spend his time digging through those old documents left behind, but the previous investigation team while he guards the cockabirds, then finally drops into rest. Dressed is grinning because the help is finally here. Because the maids are trained to fight, Kieta pushes the group to ditch the comfort of safety and trust them as they push forward to fail-proof the escape. He let his head hang out. He lets the rest know he's about to snatch Fail and the other girls from outside the place. The sun hides behind the clouds as the whole crew finally drops in and gets settled into their new place. That massive coca bird just stands there, frozen like it's daring you to make the first move. They're standing there, utterly baffled, like nothing makes sense at all. Agni locks eyes with it, staring like he's daring it to move. Trust me, it's mostly because she secretly melts for anything fluffy. Rest clocks that she's acting off and tells her, straight up, she doesn't have to push herself just to care for the birds. Because the failure already hit first. Already pretty used to juggling them, honestly, but that crushes Agni so hard he can barely drag out a whisper of a note. She starts spiraling, sobbing that she's completely useless as a bodyguard for the rest, while fear and fails rage on and she just can't stop blaming herself. Still dressed in a bird suit, he served dinner like it was business as usual. Agni thinks if she can't fight, then she'll claw her way into being useful, because sitting around won't cut it. By taming the little ones, everything goes quiet, so Rest suddenly feels weirdly awkward. To lift her spirits, he told her to rest. Agni asks if she'll tag along with him to hunt down something to eat. Agni looks totally wrecked by the plan, then gives a soft nod and agrees to go. Hieta whips around, but it's already too late. He's about to fail. He tells her, "Don't worry, Rest's safety is in your hands now." Fail pushes back, "Leave it to me," and promises she'll show him everything she's learned in martial arts. And just like that, the whole crew finally sets out as one, plunging deeper and deeper into the forest. The woods slam you in the face with towering trees and mushrooms everywhere your eyes land, and Koro Toko blurts that he chatted with the horse Rinaland about pulling the carriage so they won't have to hire a driver. Rest was genuinely stunned, firing off a question, "So wait, can every half-elf talk to animals or is it just you?" But Koro Toko shoots back that it's only his family behind it, so that's why he'd been the animal keeper back home. The sun finally dips toward the horizon, and the trees start swallowing the last bit of light. The trees loom over them as the whole group snaps into action, ready to camp the night away. While Rest is out cold, sleeping like a brick, Fail keeps watch, because she's not just some tag-along, she's the real deal in a fight. While everyone's off camping, Fail tries to shake Agni awake. Agni snaps awake, demands what's happening, and the story cuts off at what's going on. Fail tells her she just saw this fluffy little creature outside, and Agni can't believe the word fluffy. But she grins and admits, "Honestly, I'm curious too." She's on edge because everyone else is still dead asleep right now. Still, Agni can't stop obsessing over how soft and downright adorable that fluffy little thing looked. Decide to slip out into the bushes, chasing that eerie light like it's pulling him in. Taryn's eyes snap wide, like something just grabbed his attention. She snaps her eyes wide and spots something lurking in the far distance, cutting through the dark woods like a beacon where a mysterious glow spills out of nowhere. Agni blurts that she sees it too, and then she leans in and reveals it's not really white at all, it's more like this soft light pink. Turin's jaw drops. He's like, "Agni's got insane eyesight. How is he spotting that so clearly?" Agni just locks eyes with the tiny creature and blurts out that it's honestly the cutest thing he's ever seen. A lone figure is pushing right through the thick grass nearby, right on the edge of something big. Just beyond the campsite, in the quiet before everything erupted. Right beside where the group parks their carriage for the night, Ristine finally jolts awake, sits up and lets out a half-cut, muffled sound, like he's been caught waking up too fast. Confused, he whips his eyes around and it hits him. He finally realizes something feels off. He snaps and demands where Agni and Fail are because they're not here. Taryn pauses for a beat, eyes narrowing as the idea clicks into place. For a second, she pauses, then admits it. The moment he brings it up, she realizes she hasn't seen them anywhere. Right when the wolf erupts with a loud bark, it blasts out to grab their attention. Koro Toko jabs a finger at the woods and tells Rest that the wolf can track the two girls from right there. He leads them deep into the forest, where sunlight slices through the branches like a spotlight. They finally stumble into a massive hidden pocket of the world. Boom! A roaring waterfall, crumbling old stone buildings, and some kind of secret area that just keeps going. Agni just stands there, staring into the water, wondering if it's a hidden spring, and then he can't stop himself from calling it breathtaking. Fail starts to feel the fear creeping in. How far is it still going? They keep trudging along, pestering Agni, begging her to tell them if they truly stand a chance of making it back. Agni grins and tells her she's got better eyes, and a sharper nose to match. She's basically tougher than most people, so they'll probably be okay. Still, she throws in a just to be safe. Fail wrestles with the fact that she was the one who pushed Agni into this, but he never thought her friend would take it this seriously, until Agni suddenly slams the brakes and covers her nose. She swears she smells something totally off, and it leaves Faye standing there, baffled and staring like, "What the heck is that?" Agni blurts out a huge sneeze, gagging at the stench like it crawled out of some filthy beast monster, and you can tell it's messing with her bad, so she jabs a finger at some old stone ruins and urges them to head over, and when Fail asks if she's alright. But Agni blurts that she feels so off balance she might not even be able to stand, and it totally knocks the Fail team sideways. Right then, a dark figure slid in sharp as a blade, cutting the air. A razor-sharp horn cuts right through the bushes near the bridge, like something is hunting. She walked away, then just froze, standing there with a completely blank stare. As she leans in to peek over, and straight up asks if something really was lurking in the bushes. Agni's completely wiped out, slumped over and hanging her weight on the Fail, Then he catches her and fires off, asking if she's okay because, as Agni can barely keep her eyes open, she tells Fail she needs a break and a little rest, but Fail just keeps staring at her. Staring with pure worry, she never thought her friend would push herself this far until she ended up like this. They huddle on the stone bridge's edge and Fail snaps his head around, uneasy, like a monster's lurking somewhere nearby, but she eventually whirls back to Agni, drops her head and apologizes. She admits she only dragged her out here because she figured Agni would melt over something soft and fluffy. Turns out Agni's mood had tanked hard because that cockabird wouldn't give her an ounce of friendliness. She quickly looked away, cheeks hot with embarrassment as, while she thanks Fail for sticking by her, she admits she may have been pushing things too fast, and it leaves Fail sitting there, totally baffled. Until Agni finally spills the truth about her real goal. She says she didn't just want it, she wanted to tame that. She points that bird to make herself more useful to Lord Rest, and just as she's trying to move, Fail flashes a playful grin and calls her out. Then she cuts in with, "Wait, did Agni? I just wanted to be friends with the bird because it was insanely fluffy, and that's what kicked everything off, leading to Agni's blushing hard, stammering that maybe, just maybe, that played a part too, while Fail just grins, totally locked in on how adorable her friend is. Fail let out a small laugh, but Agni shut her down with a straight face. "It's true," she said, "I really want to be useful to Lord Rest." Fail swings in to lift her spirits, tells Agni she's already dependable, and insists her cooking is straight up amazing, watching Agni blush as she does. Then Fail leans in and adds that her friend is crushing it just the way she is. Agni drops her gaze and admits she's not as skilled at fighting or martial arts as Fail, so there was no way she could keep Lord Rest safe if a real emergency ever hit. She cringes even harder at the thought because she's a half-beastman, and everyone knows how people like her usually end up. Renowned for raw power. So she finally cracks and starts spilling about her family. She tells Fail she has an older brother who's, right now, he's moonlighting as a spy inside the Dine House, running all kinds of secret operations behind the scenes. She tells him they hired them for one reason only. Half-beastmen have wild, lightning-fast reflexes, and then, even Agni has to admit it, her reflexes are downright awful, and deep down she always felt like she was just dragging her brother down. Agni slumps over, feeling utterly worthless, and admits she doesn't even have the beastman strength everyone else takes for granted. Then she says she couldn't really complain if they tossed her out, but Lady Eliza kept lavishing praise on her cooking. Eliza once called her food delicious, and Agni straight up explains that's the one reason she could even end up working as a maid. Fail heard the whole story, nodded like it finally clicked, and told her friend, "I get it, I just hope I can. She can at least hang with those cockabirds." She even swears she'll be right there, ready to jump in and help. Suddenly something rustles up top. Tall grass loomed nearby and Agni snapped, panicking so hard he blurted that something was definitely lurking in there. Near the carriage, Rest screams for both girls, then it crashes straight into a Fail. Fail glances back, finally letting out a breath of relief, until a giant blur tears across the field at insane speed, charging straight for where they're all standing. Rest spots it rushing in, eyes snapping wide, and the shock hits him as he realizes just how fast it's coming. This fresh threat is charging in, so he screams at everyone, "Watch out." It crashes down hard, slamming into the dirt out of nowhere. Rest and the maids go stone still as a huge white, one-horned monster shoves itself across their path and glares down at them. They stare down at it and then someone shrieks, "It's a monster!" fearing some kind of horned beast invasion is about to tear everything apart. Staring at the beast, Rest snaps. He finally realizes what it is because Kieta already warned him about creatures like this. Then back in the day he remembers unicorns are sweet only to pure maidens, but to everyone else they're basically wild monsters, and he's about to find out the hard way. Apparently, when these things rampage, a whole lot of people don't make it, and somehow that death toll stacks up every single year. Rest starts sweating as it clicks. There's no way he's a maiden, and this whole situation is starting to look really bad. Dangerous for him because out of nowhere, he blurts that he hates pickles. Korotoko was screaming at the top of his lungs that it was a holy beast. Korotoko stares at the creature, then asks for just a second, like he's bracing for whatever comes next. If this unicorn is really meant to be a legendary holy beast, yeah, it really speaks. And when it opens its mouth, it doesn't call itself a unicorn, it declares it's a unicorn. Rest just freezes with his mouth hanging wide open, totally stunned that the animal actually talked to them. The unicorn goes off on this wild rant about how normal unicorns just don't get how the world really works. Then the rest just freezes there, totally clueless, while the beast roars that they took lives instead. The possibilities stretch out. This creature looks dead serious, insisting that if love is real, then it doesn't matter at all if they. It asks whether the girls are truly pure maidens, or if having a bunch of women around is enough to satisfy his fantasies hit, but the long talk drains the rest of him to nothing. Fail looks lost, then blurts out, "Wait, what? What is this horse even talking about?" The unicorn locks on and recognizes them as the lily flowers from earlier, and it's gonna make everything go off the rails. Did it just start talking? I keep failing to wonder what it means. Beast goes on, telling her it's been watching them, like it's always had its eyes on them even as it speaks. From far away, you could still spot them as they hung out by the pier. It drags on and on until Taurine finally clocks what's going on, flashes a grin and calls the creature out for peeping on. Fail and the others, the unicorn's cheeks flare red in seconds after someone calls it a naughty horse, and it suddenly acts just like a little girl. Axe seethed, huffing that he wasn't some filthy brute, while rest goes absolutely wild, blurts to Korotoko that the holy beast can actually talk, and that's where the video ends. Leaves the kid utterly baffled as Korotoko leans in, asking if Rest is seriously only focused on that really. Right now, he can't shake the feeling. Maybe there's something way bigger that he needs to shout about. Beast's behavior left everyone stunned. Korotoko even admits he was shocked by the talking at first, but the beast kept creeping on those women, inching closer with every step. Is what really hits him hard, and then he moves on. The unicorn begins to sweat, fast and furious. And he blurts out, "Is Korotoko really that kid from the local village?" Immediately, he starts begging the kid to keep the whole thing secret from the villagers, because if they find out, everything goes sideways. Ruin his reputation. He blurts that people have worshipped him like a holy sacred creature for ages, and then. But Tarine just shuts him down, cuts the mystery at the root and tells him, "You're not mysterious, you're just a talking horse." Unicorn finally admits it's a bad habit. Yeah, the way everyone warned him, while Rest and Turin just stand there staring at him as he admits that once he starts talking, he literally can't shut up. Then in the background, villagers burst into chaos, yelling for the holy beast, but the unicorn insists that every time he rams into a villager, he's ready to sprint. He just played it like a normal horse, kept his distance, and stayed way out of reach. Then he tried to pin down the exact moment, trailing off mid-thought as he dug into the memory. Tarine clocks the vibe and the sheer size of it, and blurts to the others that a crazy long story is about to kick off right as the unicorn looks over and then he bursts out an apology to the whole group, swearing it's only because an insanely crazy amount of time has passed since I finally got the chance to talk to anyone else at all. Tarine looks totally lost, then repeats his words back like, "A long time," while demanding, "What do you mean?" The beast leans in and spills the truth. Monsters used to roam everywhere. Back in the day, things were all over the place. And he made sure to track down every single one and talk to them, no exceptions. One of them would show up every time, like clockwork, so that's probably why everything started to make sense. The unicorn leans in and tells him that after a while, the monsters finally stopped showing up at all. Rest looked suspicious and demanded to know if the monsters only backed off because he kept badgering them nonstop, then that's the whole story. And Tarine is quick to make sure everyone knows it wasn't some holy power at all. With a blank face, the beast admits he didn't come to fight. He just wanted to start up a real conversation with the villagers. Yeah, he claims it happened ages ago, but the truth is, he really did try to talk to the humans once upon a time. Remember when every young woman around came sprinting the instant he walked in? Right in that moment, he swore he'd finally cracked his popular phase, and that the whole world had started loving him for real. But he pauses for a beat, replaying the exact words those girls had thrown at him back then. And it all slams right back into the present, where Agni snaps and yells that the horse smells absolutely terrible, leaving the beast completely stunned. Agni just pinches her nose with disgust screaming across her face. He looks down and admits that's exactly what they told me back then decides, "All right, I'm out," only for the beast to snap, "You'll never step near humans again," and it chooses to just like always, you watch from afar. Then Korotoko suddenly yells at the holy beast because he can't leave yet because they just finally got the chance to talk and that moment matters. The beast jerks back in shock, demanding if Korotoko's really serious about talking. Korotoko answers instantly, and he insists he wants to stuff his ears with stories from the beast about the good old days. Korotoko blurts out, "This beast knows every twist of our village's past, so you better come back and tell everyone what it knows." But the beast looks weirdly embarrassed and admits he still smells awful, and suddenly the whole moment gets super awkward. Korotoko shrugs it off, insisting everyone can handle a little smell, but Turin's already glaring and Agni looks 1 second away from snapping. Agni is absolutely stunned. She can't wrap her head around it as they blatantly ignore her. Rest glares at the creature, wondering if that stench is ever gonna wash off. Right then and there, the crew decides to give the holy beast a full deep clean, no hesitation. They set up camp by the river with a tub, while the beast lurks on the grass just waiting. He asks if they should start by scrubbing the beast's body first, and the thing immediately starts stuttering. Still totally stunned, like, wait, they're really about to touch it? And it goes on to say how she thinks a maiden should never do that because it could ruin her. Then the creature's cheeks light up and it starts blushing like, aye. This kind of chance might be the one and only shot we ever get. Rest storms in with a giant brush, screams scrub time, and he whips his head back in total shock, and right there Agni just stands there dripping with disgust, and she looks like she's one breath away from cracking, because everything smells so foul it's messing with her nerves. The cockatrice confesses he showers every single day, because he's terrified that some maiden will sniff him out and call him a beast. Even shows how he's been rolling around in a patch of herbs lately, like he's daring the world to notice. Turns out he slipped deep into the forest just to hunt down the perfect scent. No jokes, he was on a mission. But Rest keeps scrubbing and keeps demanding, "Tell me, did rolling in those random forest herbs really make me stink this bad?" The bath finally done, the beast bursts out glowing, sparkling like a brand new monster. The whole crew crowds in to stare at the results, and Agni admits the nasty smell has finally backed off a lot, plus, the worst of it is gone, but Turin can still smell that nasty beast stink loud and clear. Fail's brain starts racing for an answer, and they can't help but wonder, can they squeeze in one more try? She says a tiny splash of perfume could hide that natural smell, and Rhea nods along, declaring it the perfect plan. And then he botches it, forces a grin, and leans in to ask the beast how it feels about using a sweet scent that girls usually go crazy for. The cockatrice perks right up when he hears the perfume is stealing hearts with the ladies, while Agni just stands there staring like he's stuck. Rest's look turns fully annoyed as he starts hustling, pulling together the ingredients for Terrine's special scent, orange, vanilla, and a handful of local herbs. He points out that most of these plants were spotted right when they first kicked off their work on the island, but then, boom, there's a catch. Rest leans in and tells the group the brutal truth. They're not just short on ingredients, they've completely missed the severe amount of flour the recipe needs, so Terrine fires off a question, what does this flour even look like? And Rest immediately offers to sketch a quick picture so she can spot it. Turin grabs the pencil and tackles the drawing herself, then proudly parades it like a trophy. But the mess is so bad that Rest completely snaps. It's nothing but a messy knot of black scribbles, and somehow they're calling it a flower. Masterpiece. Rest stares, like the perfect place to finally catch a breath. In utter silence, he couldn't shake the feeling that nobody on Earth would ever be able to make sense of this. He's dead serious. The drawing feels so cursed that just staring at it could snap your mind in half, and with how things are getting stranger by the second. So he shrugs and just dives in himself, using his crafting skill to take control right away. Rest leans in, stares at the drawing, and realizes the world itself has censored it, turning his masterpiece into nothing but blurry pixels. So Terrine scoots closer and fires the question, what am I even supposed to be staring at? The team starts doubting this even is the flower they need, because the sketch is so awful they can't make out a single thing. But Fail just grins and tells her she absolutely nailed it, while the unicorn stands there like he's had his fill and wants none of this. Suddenly, the unicorn snaps its head toward Turin and commands, hold on, grab my horns. And it leaves Fail frozen in total confusion, staring at him like, why would you even ask for something like that? The unicorn casually drops the line that a girl brushing his horns feels unreal, but that's not the real reason he's saying it. Whitney's face twists in pure disgust as she tells him, keep it together. Keep those messed up fetishes locked up in his own head and don't spill them to anyone. He brushes her off and insists there's more, because when anyone touches them he can actually see their thoughts. He snaps that he'll literally die the moment he lays eyes on a man, leaving Agni scrambling just to understand these wild rules as they stand out there in the woods. The unicorn says that, just from the way things sound, he might actually know a secret spot where a whole bunch of only those flowers can grow, which somehow gets him so fired up that he blurts out he's gonna try grabbing those horns himself, right up until he reaches. A unicorn lunges at him, snapping that he's a fool, and it growls a warning that this man is never allowed to lay a hand on them. Rest can't help it, he bursts out laughing and says the beast is weirdly, shockingly shy. Karotoko just stood there, shoulders sinking, wondering if he's about to get banned too. He can't stop smiling at this wild situation, so he leans in and asks the unicorn if she'll let him read her thoughts too, and before he can even react, she lunges in and clamps onto his horn with a tight, unbreakable grip. Unicorn pulls a wild face and drools right from the contact point, and Agni just stares, watching as he blurts the whole thing. It's honestly pretty disgusting from start to finish. He forces his focus back on and fires off the question to Fail, was she just thinking about eating sweets? Agni tore into some of the chiffon cake, and then Fail beams with pure awe, straight up bragging to the holy beast that he nailed it. Like everyone should know he just did the coolest thing alive. She grins and declares without a doubt that his mind-reading power is the real thing. Fail tells the unicorn to stop snooping into people's heads and focus on reading the flowers, but the beast just stares off, dazed, then swears it'll keep all her secrets. While she grips his horn in her fist, rubbing it as they talk. She admits she's never actually laid a hand on a horn before, and the moment she touches it, she's shocked by how warm it feels. The holy beast suddenly starts acting off, then tells her she can crush it way harder than she ever thought. Harder, and then right as everything tightens, he lets out a creepy little laugh as the moment. His fail lands like a punch, and he squeezes back hard. The beast lets out a thunderous, totally bizarre roar that echoes through the entire forest. The unicorn suddenly surges back with energy, then tells them the flowers are hiding in a cave near. Nearby, he's yelling for everyone to follow him, while Agni just stares him down with pure. Rest swears the guy suddenly snapped to attention out of nowhere, and then still couldn't pull it off. Fail just smirks and says it's painfully obvious the holy beast is straight up having the time of its life, guiding them straight into the mouth of a pitch-dark rocky cave tucked into the mountainside. Korotoko stares at the entrance and blurts, "This is my first time here, because back home everyone keeps all." She kept warning him to stay the hell away from this place. Turin just stands there, watching as they ready themselves. Get ready because it's time to dive in. Fail leans in and reveals the truth about the Severia flower scent. It isn't what everyone thinks. Why do people get so damn sleepy? And then it hits her, she finally gets why a nap in this place felt so wildly wrong. Strangely calming right before everything snapped. Rest decides that, since this is a real hike, those three adults have to be the ones who go gather the plants, because it has to be done right, and so the crew starts pushing forward into the cave's dark, jagged mouth, one step at a time. Agni charges ahead while Rest lifts a lantern, blazing a path so everyone can follow in the dark. Then they burst out into a massive, glowing cavern packed with white flowers. Flowers are sprawled everywhere, and one of the girls gasps about how breathtaking the whole place looks. Turin stood frozen in awe, blurting out that she never in a million years imagined a place like this could even exist. Wasn't even on the island, while Rest scans his surroundings and blurts out that he really wishes Keita might have noticed this coming too. Agni glances back at him and shoots out the idea to grab some flowers and be done with it. They grab the flowers to take home, and then Rest stares at the white blooms like they mean something, saying they'll light up the dining table back home like a whole new world. Torin grins and nods, agreeing that it's a. She grins and declares it's a brilliant plan, because she's positive Kieta is going to adore those gifts. So Rest swears the job will take only a few seconds to keep the scenery looking perfect. Then he fires up his craft skill to pull everything together fast. He's out there picking flowers when he suddenly freezes, lifts his head and stares up, because that weird noise just snapped his attention. Then the entire cave starts to tremble and the girls gasp like, "Is this an earthquake?" Rocks start raining down the moment that massive shadow slides in from the back, and someone jerks up with a loud, startled yell. Out of nowhere, a barely there voice cries for help and Agni snaps, asking if someone else is really trapped in the cave. Rest stares into the dark, convinced one of Koro Toko's missing villagers is out there, so he bolts off to chase them down, while the girls shout for him to wait up. Rest just glances back and tells them, "You're good." With his craft skill locked in, he's protected. Rest ordered Agni and the crew to turn back the way they came, while he sprinted ahead and kept moving. He plunges deeper into the cave and a colossal rumble erupts, shaking the entire forest like it's about to split in half. The unicorn blurts, "Is this an earthquake?" And Terine snaps back, "I've got a really bad feeling about this, so." Koro Toko blasts out a furious shout at the whole group. The crew checks in, making sure every last one of them is okay. He stops at the roadside, cranes his neck upward, and the moment he sees it, his heart drops like a stone. Someone clings to a towering rock pillar, groaning through every breath as they fight to break free. The cloaked figure is hanging on by a thread, just their fingertips, until the ledge gives way. Snaps off like a trigger and they go flying right through the air. Rest reacts instantly and screams, His craft skill finally snapped into action. He finishes it, turning rock into a giant hand that shoots out and snatches them at the last second. The cloaked girl drops onto the giant stone hand like a whisper, landing soft as silence. Then he finally let himself rest, and the moment he did, a tiny groan ripped out of him. Shit. She spins around, utterly baffled, and can't stop wondering why. Why does the ground suddenly feel like it's shifted, just for her? Across the gap, Rest shouts to see if she's okay, but she only stares back, stone-faced. So Rest rubs his head and demands, "Did you cause all this?" And she just nods. He blurts out that he's just relieved she's safe, scans her for any injuries, and then he starts. Then he thrusts out his hand and introduces himself, Lest, and asks her right then and there what her name is. She just stares up at him with eyes stretched wide, like she can't believe he's being this kind. She starts blushing like crazy, cheeks burning and eyes all flustered then. But right when Rest starts asking again, she grabs his hand and whispers, quiet as a secret, "I'm Estria." Fail and Koro Toko just freeze on the spot, eyes wide and mouths agape, stunned beyond words by everything unfolding in front of them. From far away, one voice calls for her to rest. Then the second Estria spots who it is. She snaps to it, it's her brother Kali. Rest is completely thrown off, because seeing them reunited hits him with a shock. But Estrella didn't even pause, she flung her arms around him and broke into tears, confessing she'd been watching for him nonstop. "I'm hunting for him everywhere, like I can't breathe until I find him." Kali grins and tells him the curse wasn't from nowhere. He got hit by a slab of flour, and thankfully it. Rest finally showed up and literally saved his skin, and Estria's stunned to learn that Rest had his back too. Next, the group turns back and tells you how they whipped up a one-of-a-kind perfume, made just for you, to wield it against the holy beast. Taurine says it's her new scent now, and Kali just stands there totally lost like, wait, what's with the whole holy bee? One of the girls clocks it and realizes that harsh smell doesn't even faze her anymore. So Fail breaks it down like this, as long as they keep using that rub-on. He only wears it once a month, but the magic stays fresh and hits like it's brand new. She thrusts the jar up into the light, saying it has this sweet, sugary scent that hits her like a perfect memory of Taurine. The holy beast is convinced everything's going perfectly, until he notices the girls staring at him like never before, and Agni's clearly not having it, her annoyance practically screaming. Agni's eyes flare like she just clocked something huge, but she swallows her words and hesitates before she finally speaks, stuttering through the shock. She points out, at this rate, the holy beast won't even get to use the perfume, and just like that, the poor guy's vibe crashes hard. Koro Toko bursts into the conversation with a brand new plan, urging them to just go, and he turns toward the local villagers, begging for a hand, then whips back to his sister and insists that back home everyone would gladly help watch over the holy beast. Estria throws her full agreement down on the table, then tells the beast it'd be an absolute honor to take care of him. Making the beast look totally swallowed up by emotion, he's never been treated like this before, so he swallows his nerves and asks Estria straight up, will she and the villagers really welcome him just the way he is? He's grinning from ear to ear as he tells them to open the floodgates and let the whole village hear the holy beast's voice. As Agni stands there with Rest and the other maids, joy finally hits, because the beast is safe now and he's found the home he was born to belong to. Rest and the girls decide to hand the reins to Astoria, she leads them deeper into the woods and they follow her until so they can finally burst into Udarao village. A hidden calm spot sits tucked under a giant, towering tree like it's guarding a secret. Once they roll in, the holy beast strides right up to an old elf and greets him like the village chief while the chief glances back, then admits with a heavy sigh that it's been ages since they last laid eyes on the holy beast. The old elf snaps into memory, grilling the beast with one burning question. How many years have really passed since they last spoke? He starts saying this goes all the way back to when the beast was still just a young man, and Fail immediately clocks that it's about to be a crazy long tale. Rest even realizes the chief was one of the rare people who knew the beast could talk. So with business to handle, they grab the village plaza and pack everyone in, and Rest and the crew begin handing out the special. They hauled in the medicine to break the curse on the slate of flowers, and before long it was working. Word spreads like wildfire, villagers gasp in shock, demanding to know if there's even a cure for the flower's curse. The elves are buzzing with excitement, and one of them blurts out that their hunting range is about to explode, because the curse finally breaks. Everyone drops to Rest, and they thank him over and over for saving their village. So Rest just grins back, telling them he's genuinely thrilled he could help everyone. He tells them straight up if they ever. Once they're in trouble, he's the one who always shows up, ready to back them up no matter what. And just like that, Korotoko sprints straight into. He bolts into his father's arms, screaming that he's finally home, and his dad just exhales in pure relief because he's alive and he's safe. Look. He glanced down at his son while he tried to catch his breath, with the girls watching from the side. Rest says he's just thrilled that the holy beast and Korotoko slipped back into the village so easily. But when he sees the family together, it hits him and he goes quiet for a second. That bond hits Rest so hard he can't help wondering if one day he'll finally have to stare down his own father again. But he whips his head around at his friends and the Vili. A jolt hit him as he realized this island wasn't just a stop anymore. It had already turned into his real home. Agni just stands there, staring dead ahead with zero expression on her face. But then Rest bursts into laughter and asks if Agni really thought that was funny. So Agni snaps back that it's nothing like that, he just sounded exactly like Kieta for a second and she couldn't help it. Rest grins and says, all right then, if that's the case, he'd better get moving and start doing his job as the lord of this island. He decides to kick things off by talking to the villagers, but right when he's about to move, a voice suddenly cuts through the air and calls his. And then bam, Estria shows up, grinning, saying she cooked a huge meal just to thank them for everything they did today. Hope shines in her eyes as she turns to the group and begs them to come over and join everyone for the food. But he slams on the brakes and freezes. He's staring at her, completely blindsided, like something just hit him mid-breath. Estria is totally thrown by his reaction, while the rest can't stop staring at the animal ears perched on her head. She clocks him staring and, like it's nothing, casually flashes her beastkin truth, points straight at her ears. Rest shoots her a look and demands, "So you really are Koro Toko's older sister?" And Estrella finally starts to crack open the truth about her. She spills her past, telling you the real reason she ended up washing ashore on the shore island until local villagers burst in and rescued her just in time. She tells him, "I live here with my younger brother," and leaves him hanging on the next word. It talks about how Corey's family has been taking care of her so well ever since she arrived. Rest realizes he's not the only one who stumbled into this place, while Agni is just sits there quietly, and then Rest starts itching with curiosity. Where is she really from? So he asks for her home country. She tells him it's the Goro Empire, the one place everyone's saying is basically the Beastmen's home turf. Then she slams a bombshell, revealing she was the Empire's third princess before she vanished and left her behind in engagement, and he sprinted off. Agni shot back, "Was it a political marriage?" And Rest just nodded like, "Yeah, that's classic noble drama." Estria snaps into a serious tone and lays it out. Right, there is exactly why she's desperate to fall in love and get married. Held firm to her own rules, then a calm smile breaks out as Rest leans in and swears he gets exactly what she's saying. Totally gets that. Because he came here chasing the same freedom. Then she suddenly snatches his hands and begs him to marry her. Rest's eyes flicker just for a heartbeat. Then she fights to steady herself because the truth of what she's just heard suddenly hits like a punch. It finally hits him, and she just stands there, flashing the most harmless, innocent smile. Stuck in silence, Rest finally snaps into it. he finds his voice and blurts marriage straight back to her. Right before things could get even more awkward, some random guy suddenly shouts, "Hold up, wait." As he bursts out from the trees, he skids to a stop, and Rest and Agni whip around instantly to see what just happened. Who's crashing the conversation like a wrecking ball, because the rest are totally caught off guard. A sudden intruder bursts in and demands to know who the man thinks he is. Van introduces himself, then immediately loses his mind and starts roaring at Ren for putting his hands on his sister, and he's radiating pure fight mode while Rest just freezes, completely lost, so Estria grabs at Van to stop him. But he snaps at her to stay out of it, then slams his hand onto his sword handle and draws. He yanks his blade free with a sharp metallic snap, and it screams one thing: he's not here to play. Van sinks into a full combat stance and demands a duel that only drags the situation out even worse for the rest. Utterly clueless about the whole mess, Van tells him, "In my country, you don't just marry, you prove you're strong first." So he's about to test whether Rest is truly a match for Estria, and right then, bam, everything goes wrong with a maid lunges in and snaps, "What the hell do you think you're doing to Lord Rest, Van?" He gets cut off mid-sentence and demands answers, then points at the little shrimp and asks what she wants with him. Fail refuses to back down and declares she'll be the one to take the fight in Rest's place. But Van is so blindsided by the sudden challenge that he can't even react. And if the Warrens fail, she'll have to face the brutal truth. This injury is on her, not them. Vale just strides right up to him while he's standing there waiting. Agni and Taurine start losing it, blurting that they never should have gone down this road. And Rest dives in, because this whole situation is way too dangerous to stand there and watch. Vale is locked in for the fight, shouting at Van that this is his last chance to throw in the towel. She laughs in his face, growing even more cocky, and dares him to attack her from any side he wants. Then she rockets ahead, screaming at the top of her lungs that she's coming for him. The moment they see it, the whole crew snaps and erupts in screams, staring in shock only to spot Van flat slammed onto his back in an instant. Agni then snaps to Fail that she was meant to hold back. Van lies sprawled on the ground, totally stunned, while Turin over on the side can't stop worrying whether he'll even make it after a hit that brutal. He can't even wrap his head around losing, but Fail just shrugs like it's nothing and smirks. "That was a piece of cake," right as she turns to walk away. Van jolts upright, eyes wide with pure confusion, because before he could even blink it was all over and he's demanding to know what just happened. Agni watches him get wrecked, says, "I told you this would be a bad idea," and turns out she wasn't wrong because it all goes bad from. Fail is dangerous for one terrifying reason: Kiara's only student, and she's already mastered an insane amount of martial arts. Almost nobody can last a real fight with her. She's on a whole other level than everyone else, so she turns around and heads back over like, "Come on, let me see if he can." He can even stand up. Van just stares at her like she's brand new and even while he's still gasping for breath, Fail makes it crystal clear she's not giving him a rematch, but then Van suddenly strikes a stiff formal pose and blurts out, "Marry me," dead serious like there's no joke at all. Just stood there frozen with a blank stare, totally thrown off by the sudden proposal. The entire group just stands there, gaping because the moment's gone, every plan lost, while Agni frets, trying to figure out what the sibling is going through, and outside the house everything looks calm, like the world's holding its breath, while inside chaos is going full blast. Back at the table, Estria scrambles to fix the damage. She apologizes for how hard her brother just jumped everyone out of their seats, so Van finally speaks up and admits, yeah, those feelings totally hijacked him in that moment. His fingers rub the back of his head, and he erupts into laughter. He laughs it off, admits he was totally shocked, and tells them not to worry, but Van refuses to back down. He stares straight ahead and declares he hasn't quit on this yet. And if he fails, he won't just lose. He'll make a brand new deal right there, so he can't stop. If she won't marry him, then she'll have to take him on as her apprentice instead. Fail freezes for a heartbeat, finger pressed to her chin, trying hard to wrap her head around what this guy is even saying. She finally tells him straight up she doesn't really get this whole apprentice deal, but she's totally fine staying friends, so. And then he totally loses it with pure joy as he decides. So he makes it official, boom, he's officially her apprentice now. Van gets totally pumped and declares, "From now on, I'm calling you Fail Master," while Agni just stares at the guy blank-eyed. She can tell it, these two aren't even close, they're on totally different levels. Turin just giggles and sips her tea, grinning because it's actually kind of amazing seeing everyone click, especially if they. Even when everything feels chaotic, Korotoko and another island resident burst in right then to show up and say hi. And the guy leans in, asking the whole group whether they're really gonna stay here and grab a night's sleep. He insists they stay over for sure, because Korotoko would be thrilled to have them around. Then, out of nowhere, the holy beast suddenly chimes in and announces to the whole room that it's been watching everything unfold. And it basically says, "Alright, later tonight I'm gonna sit down with the maids and unload everything I need to talk about." He starts laughing full-on, can't stop laughing, and then points out that the holy beast is famous for spinning these ridiculously long tales. And he cracks a joke that those tales would totally work as the perfect lullaby. But the beast doesn't laugh at all, and it snaps back mid-sentence, telling him, treated that insult like it was nothing, far too casual for how rude he'd been. The holy beast makes it crystal clear it'd rather play with the maids than lie down, especially since it's not even dark yet, so that's when Rest standing there utterly baffled, while Korotoko snaps at the group that it's finally time to move out. So the girls all break off for the night. Estria looks Lord Rest in the eyes and tells him she'll see him tomorrow, then slips out fast to make sure he gets a proper good night before the holy beast spots them slipping away and lunges to follow, so Rest asks if they should go too, but one of the girls snaps at it to stay put, mostly because Fail is absolutely buzzing at the thought of the beast joining them for a bath, until the holy beast flips out, screams that there's no way it's stepping in, and they slam the idea shut and move on to the next part. The next day rolls in and Rest sinks into the village, spending time chatting with everyone there. The village chief went to get the full scoop on the island's history. Then he turns to the old guy and straight up asks how long this village has really been standing, and if anyone from the outside world besides Estria and her crew has ever managed to push their way here after that. That Rest snaps the chief into realizing the truth. He's the new lord of the island now. It's a whole lot to swallow, but from everything he's heard so far, this village is way wilder than he ever imagined. Turns out the chief says it's a refuge for people the pureblood elves chased away. And he tells Rest, you must have gone through hell just to get yourself here. Rest waves it off like it's nothing. It wasn't like that at all, because he'd planned his own exile. Now he's not even fighting for it anymore, so it's barely been an issue. So he thanks the old man for spilling every secret about the village's history, and then he finally hears the whole story. Rest tells the chief he's ready to start exploring the rest of the island and asks if he can count on their help, so the chief can't stop smiling as he agrees. Then he leans in and tells Rest, we'd love to help you with anything you need. The whole crew piles into the village house, brains firing, trying to crack their next move before everything goes sideways. Rest calls out to Estria and tells her he can't stop thinking about heading to the cove, the very shore where her crew first landed. And he asks if she'll guide them there, and Estria's face lights up with a huge grin. She'd love to show them the way. Then Van barges in to brag that the place is gorgeous, promises they can even go for a swim, and the second Fail hears it, he instantly gets super hyped. Fail's mind starts racing about the trip and he blurts out, wait, are we really doing this? Asks just how long it'll take to finally reach the cove, because once Rest realizes they've got to move fast, he straight up tells them, if we're late, Kieta's going to worry, no question. Just then Korotoko steps out from the doorway and calls out, hey, before firing off his question. He asks for a quick check, are we still going to hit the cove and investigate? Then he steps up to help, tells Rest he'll go ahead and clue Kieta in that the rest of the crew is going to roll back home late. Estria pauses for a beat, eyes soft, and quietly thanks him for bailing her out the other day. Rest's gut twists at the thought, so he tells Korotoko, yeah, I'm grateful, but you're not heading back alone. And out of nowhere, a weird unicorn bursts its head through the window, stares right at the group, and demands of Kieta, is the girl a maiden? Agni doesn't look impressed. She locks eyes with the horse, interrogates it like it's been caught eavesdropping on their talk again. But the unicorn doesn't even blink. He glows all sparkly and throws a dramatic line like, I guess I don't really have a choice, I'll go with you. He starts bragging that every maiden everywhere is jealous of him, then suddenly cuts himself off. Wait, no, I'm getting distracted. The unicorn shouts at Korotoko to leap onto its back right now. And the kid's jaw drops. He blurts out that the beast is sacred. Then the horse starts boasting that it can fly whenever it wants, no problem at all, even without those slate of flowers. Agni sees all of it and realizes, yeah, she's actually starting to respect the guy, so she meets his eyes and leans in, ready to say it straight. Stares him down and demands he make sure Korotoko gets taken care of properly. No shortcuts. The unicorn practically struts with pride as he gets ready to unleash everything he can do. He shouts that everyone should step back and trust him, then blasts off like a rocket, faster than anyone ever thought possible. With everything finally settled, the whole crew wastes no time and heads for the cove together. The sun blazes over those giant cliffs as their massive exploration mission finally kicks off. They stumble on a rocky entrance, and someone yells that this is the exact cave that funnels straight into the water. Rest is buzzing with questions because how on earth did the official investigation team blow right past a place like this? Rest stares at the massive stone archway like it's calling him, then decides the whole crew has to see what's on the other side. He barrels onward, eyes on the local map. Lord's Manor sprawls far past the mountains, while the village is hemmed in. A haze of thick flower pollen choked the air, while monster nests lurked like traps, so the path they chose dove into a tangled underground passage that twists straight toward the coastal inlet, because that map screams one thing: this place is packed with magic-absorbing ore and volcanic vents, and it's only going to get worse. Right here is a brutal spot to push through, because the water straight up drains into the great maelstrom of Nart. As they push deeper into the cavern, someone blurts out a warning: watch your step, because it's about to get pitch black. Darkness closes in as Van storms ahead with a torch, while the others clutch a lantern up top so the maids and Estria can finally see where they're going. As they push forward, Rest cranes his neck at the jagged walls and blurts out that it feels like a giant maze. But Van just grins and tells Rest not to sweat because he's got every step of the route burned into his memory. Turns out this guy is. And he backs it up with the kind of reliability that you can count on every single time. They tear down one last set of stone stairs and Van finally blurts out, "We're here." The crew finally stumbles onto the underground lake and Fail blurts out, "This water looks insane." Rest scans the area and asks everyone if they should suit up right now. Everyone's buzzing with hype. Fail throws her hand up and screams at the top of her lungs, itching to kick off the fun. As Taryn smiles to herself, she blurts out that she's so glad she spent the time making swimsuits for the entire group, because she's got a serious weakness for adorable clothes. And with that huge cavern blazing overhead, Fail doesn't even pause. She lets out a wild scream that she's going for a swim and then she blasts into the sky with a massive leap. Honestly, it fits perfectly because everyone knows she's the strongest maid and she crashes into the water with a massive splash. Van from the edge stares in total awe, then tells his master how insanely amazing it is that he brought. Then they finally made it here, and Rest and Agni just stood at the shore, soaking in every second. But over on the side, Estria snaps to it. There's a bit of a problem brewing. Of a sudden wardrobe disaster, she spots the string on her top has slipped loose and Taryn jumps in to save the day. She shows Estria exactly how to tie it so it won't budge, and promises it'll never come loose if she does it her way. Estria left her jaws on the floor. She tells Taryn that when it comes to clothes, she truly knows what she's doing. Estrella glances over her shoulder with a shy smile, asking Rest how she looks in her new gear, like she's desperate for reassurance, even though she still doesn't know what she's doing. Even though she's tougher than she looks, right now she just seems totally adorable. Rest nods along and he tells her she's so cute that her cheeks burn brighter than ever, and then he drops the line that Agni and the other girls too are absolutely rocking theirs. It's a sweet moment for everyone. But Agni looks flustered. Turns out the girl in front of him is you. And here I thought he'd be effortlessly graceful. Turns out he's actually a pretty terrible swimmer. And Estria refuses to let that ruin the fun. She glances over her shoulder and goes, "Hey Rest, are you jumping in with us?" But Rest stays locked on the job, and he leans in to tell her he's got to finish surveying this whole inlet section first. So Estria stares at him and asks if there's anything the two of them can do to help, and Rest has to think it over for a second before. And he takes them up on it right away. He leans in and tells the girls he's got a little favor to ask. Then both Agni and Estria instantly lock arms, both ready to help right away, and they head for the campsite, rushing to get to work, leading to with the three of them huddled at the water's edge, huge fish just float past, like the glowing cave is putting on a show. He leans over the water, then realizes that the fountain hole the village chief warned about has to be right beyond this lake. Then he leans in and tells the girls the truth, how that giant hole gulps seawater and fish straight out of the ocean and spits them into the lake, meaning. So for them, it's basically the exact same story, just told in a slightly different way. For them and the half-elves who live here, and it all started to shake, as Ray. His rest points out the truth, every single one of them was hauled in from the sea, and somehow they all ended up here so he snaps the clues together and suddenly it hits him. Nault's legendary whirlpool has to be the answer. It has to be the link that ties every single thing to this cave. He stares at the tunnel layout and realizes, sure, everyone calls it a cove, but it's actually something else. It's basically a one-way ticket. Once you fall for it, there's no getting back. Retsu just stands there, staring into the weirdness, realizing the whole setup is nothing like what he expected. Like he's stumbled into a completely different story from any normal fountain he's ever laid eyes on. And as he stares up at the ceiling blasting water in his face, he can't shake the feeling that something is about to happen. A weird mysterious power buzzed under those jets, so he yanks out a bizarre tool, then wastes zero time. He's launching an all-out investigation of the entire area right then and there. Agni stares at the gadget and blurts, "What is this?" and Rest grins and tells her it's a spatial magic. The measuring device the village chief handed him. Rest reveals the royal research team once owned this device, then it got completely wrecked. So the chief leaned in and told him, "You can keep it if you can fix it up yourself with his razor-sharp crafting skills." Agni looks totally bewildered and blurts out, "Why would a normal village chief? Wouldn't even get gear from a royal team," so Rest lays it all out. 3 of those royal members got hurt and they ended up separated from the group on this island while everyone else sprinted toward home because the government called them back. Those 3 were left stuck, they just left, but somehow Uteral Village, those people, actually saved them, so they had no choice. They stayed and built brand new lives there. Rest peers through the viewfinder and blurts out that the chief still clings to that old Divisum memento, like it means something to those people. He tells Agni to plug the sensor in right there, but he warns her the magic meter won't snap to a reading right away. Fail locks eyes with the truth. Kali is a bloodline from those researchers, and Rest bursts into laughter when he finally gets it. Korotoko had been involved all along, part 2 included. Rest studies the gadget and it clicks, so that's it. Their link to the past is the reason the village welcomed them. Rest leans in and tells the group, "Look, people from the kingdom getting treated like suspects, that's totally normal, and it's just like that witch." Agni clocks it as weird and meanwhile fails living her best life, splashing, yelling, swimming like she owns the place, while Rest starts. He told them the real reason the folks here got targeted, straight from the chief's own mouth, and the chief laid it out. The elves are split into 2 camps, the ones who want to keep everything pure and for everyone who doesn't mind mixing. The purity group is packed with immortals, elves who live forever and refuse to marry anyone outside their own. But then there's the other side. The half-elf line didn't just happen for them, they kicked it off by hauling themselves out of their homes, and it's wild because even though they all began as one people, they did all of this just so their families could grow. The whole race tore itself apart like this, because that's the real reason it even began in the first place. Because pure fear had them panicking, like their entire kind was on the edge of vanishing for good. They showed up one day and that snap decision sent the whole group, who mixed down a new path, ended up having kids who don't live nearly as long as they should and have. Magic got cut to a tiny fraction, and that's how the half-elves we know today were born. The elf purity faction kept growing until it got so they took over the world. So many of them showed up that they became the majority everywhere, but they used that power to crush the weaker, short-lived half-elves. They get treated like total trash. It spiraled so hard that the purity faction started claiming half-elves were born to be slaves, meant for real elves, no questions allowed. They started hounding other countries, demanding they snatch up every half-elf they could get their hands on, one by one. Rest cuts in to explain his own. The whole country felt it too, and with that kind of pressure bearing down, they passed a law that demanded every half-elf be turned in on the spot. No questions, no mercy, and that is where things got seriously grim. that the rest thought the elders in Udarao village were already fully ready for what was coming. They could feel it in their bones. One day, people from the kingdom would finally show up. Burst up to their door. Agni finally clocks the whole mess and Rest just nods along like, yup, that's exactly how it went down. Rest realizes these people didn't come to the island for nothing. They ran there chasing freedom, trying to outrun the hate chasing them. Rest can't stop thinking about it. This island is officially kingdom land, and somehow they've handed him the title of Lord. But even though he's basically expected to walk in and tell them all that, they're his subjects now. He just can't force the words out. He knows he can't bring himself to say stuff like that to them. Rest reminds himself he didn't land on this island by accident. He came here to break free for good. So it feels plain wrong to just spin around and start ruling over people, stripping them of their freedom. He goes silent for a beat, staring off like the answers hiding in his thoughts, trying to crack the puzzle of how everyone can live under one roof without wrecking a single life. He's back on the job, snapping his tools into place and getting to work. Still, he admits he hasn't cracked the perfect answer yet. Agni leans in, grins, and tells him she's sure he'll crack it, because after all, it's his call since he's the one in charge. While Fail makes it crystal clear that he's a truly kind lord, one who genuinely cares about what happens to his people. Rest finally wraps up his camera work and shuts everything down. And he thanks Agni and Estria for the help they gave. But then boom, two voices down the beach shout his name, cutting him off mid-moment. Van and Fail burst in looking absolutely hyped, swinging around giant nets stuffed with fresh fish they just hauled out of the water and, with plenty to go around, Fail basically whispers, "All right, pause the chaos. Time to break for food." Sydney steps up right away, snatches control of the cooking and promises the crew, "I'll get the fish on that grill right now." The rest of the crew jumps in to help, and together they whip up a cozy little campsite right on the sand. When the food finally hits the table, Van leans in and demands to know if that measuring tool of his actually snagged anything cool. And that's when everything turns deadly serious, because the magic in this place is way stronger and way more dangerous than the elders ever warned. Van is totally thrown off because he's always believed that massive magic power was meant to be a blessing, not a problem. Rest says if you can't take it, that feeling is basically like getting totally wasted on strong liquor. Crank it too high and it hits hard. The crew keeps huddling by the fire, but one villager pipes up that since they're not magic users, they can't sense a thing. Rest just gives a slow nod, chomps down a piece of grilled fish, and then says they've got to report this to the village chief. He snaps to his feet and tells everyone they'll head back the moment they finish eating. Then later, the scene shifts back to the village chief's place. Back in the village, the chief spots it instantly. Rest's magic is way stronger than ever and he's stunned. He thanks Rest for checking out the magic mess on the beach, and he rips the village off guard with one sudden word. At last, it finally feels safe enough for him to step forward and officially claim them as his subjects. Rest is stunned to the core and blurts out to the chief, "Are you really okay with making a call that big this fast?" The chief just shrugs it off like it's nothing, saying, "We're all outcasts anyway, so what else are we supposed to do and where could we even go?" And if a lord from the kingdom showed up, they were ready to drop everything and follow his orders. The chief straight up admits they were ready to march straight into war the second the new ruler took power. It turns out he's a full-blown tyrant. Rest nervously chuckles and swears he'll do his best not to turn into some kind of tyrant, but the village chief just grins and tells him point-blank not to worry about it. The chief grips Rest's hand and tells him he can't wait to team up right as Rest. The rest of them answers, "Don't worry, every bit of that pleasure belongs to him." And the maids crowd nearby, beaming with proud grins as the moment finally seals the deal for good. Later on, young Korotoko finally gets to hop onto it. Jumps onto the unicorn's back, grinning like he's living the wildest moment of his life. That 12-year-old kid's eyes are blazing with pure excitement as they rush out. He suddenly explodes into a shout and thrusts his finger toward the horizon. Horizon, pointing at the unicorn and shouting that the place they're hunting is right there. And Unicorn shoots him a sharp, serious stare and goes, "I see the spot, now I know exactly where we've gotta go." The magical horse shot up on its hind legs and kicked off with a thunderous burst of wind and dust as they tore forward. They slam their hooves onto the path and bring the forest trip to a roaring end. Korotoko is absolutely stunned at how fast they move. he blurts to the unicorn that it's insane they made it there in an instant. The magical horse rears up and slams to a stop right at the gate, and suddenly they realize, boom, they've finally arrived at Rest's mansion. That unicorn snaps into a stone-cold serious stare, thinking Kieta's in there waiting. But just as they head up, Korotoko suddenly spots a figure and shouts, "Kieta." And that's when the old man jolts, demanding, "Who are you?" Kieta spots the young Lord Korotoko in front of him, then instantly fires off the question, "Is Rest with him?" The unicorn looks around, utterly baffled, and blurts out where Kieta is, because he can't spot him anywhere. Spot a maiden anywhere close by. The 65-year-old man just stares him down, then calmly tells him that he is. It's actually Kieta, and then boom. The horse's eyes go dead still, as the full weight of reality finally slams into him. While the unicorn just stands there, frozen in terror, Korotoko ignores him and rushes to tell Kieta he's got an update on Rest. Kieta drops, "I get it." Then he and the others charge into the house to hash everything out. Korotoko hauls Kieta up to speed, breathlessly telling him everything and then spilling how the rest of the crew took off to scout the cove. And he reassures the old man, saying the rest is already handled. Then the maid swoops in with a basket of flowers sent over as a sweet gift. Kieta takes it all in, but doubt still flickers in his eyes, so he shifts his focus and turns his attention. He walks up to the unicorn and tells him, "Just standing in the shadow of a legendary holy beast is a massive honor for me." The old man fires off compliments like he's got a secret stash. People jump in saying the horse has a crazy aura, and the unicorn just eats it all up. Kieta leans out the window and fires off, "So, would you be willing?" He was down to kick back with them and spill some of his wild life stories. It totally blindsides the unicorn, but Kieta doubles down and swears he genuinely wants to hear it. "Hang on, listen to what he's about to say." The unicorn practically bursts with pride, eager to start bragging about his holy status, while Korotoko just stands there, eyes locked on them. Stunned and totally lost, you watch them bond at lightning speed as the sun sinks behind the trees, like what just happened. But by the time they wrap up the conversation, the night has swallowed the whole world. Rest and the girls finally stumble back to the house, and before anyone can even catch their breath, they're all yelling, "We're home." And Kieta is right there in the hallway, waiting to jump in and greet Lord Rest back. The old man beams at the whole group and says he's just thrilled they all made it back, safe and whole. Rest's nodding along, he leans in and asks Kieta if the house stayed smooth while he was away. Then Kieta. The editor admits that most of his time wasn't fighting at all. He was just sitting there, talking non-stop with the holy beast. The old man sat there in silence, replaying every word from his chat with the unicorn, still awestruck at how unbelievably special that moment had been. Ever since he finally got to hear all those legendary stories from the creature. Agni shoots him a skeptical stare like, "Wait, did you really talk to him?" Gushing about that same unicorn again, but the rest just smirks and says, "I'm thrilled you two got along so great." Kieta blurts out that there are a few major things they have asterisk to cover, and that instantly leaves Rest staring like, "Wait, what are we really about to talk about?" While Korotoko's out cold on the sofa, Terine fires up the moment. "Let's keep talking over some tea," and Rest swears he's in, so Turin hustles off to gather everything and get it all ready. Agni declares she's starting on the food and tells Fail to back her up. Fail's all in like, "I'm so down, go ahead." He set out a steaming spread of cream stew packed with fresh vegetables, plus a homemade quiche that tasted like pure comfort. Agni fidgets a bit as she admits she used everything they hauled back from Udorao village. And when the food lands, it absolutely crushes. Everyone's like, "This is delicious." And even the picky ones are blown away by how impressive it is. Rest leans in and tells Kieta that Korotoko's father was the one who grew every last vegetable here. Then she brings it up again. He's been stuck in his head, picturing a brand new road that links their home straight to the village. He points out that even though the holy beast can whisk everyone there in an instant, going on foot is brutal. It takes about half a day just to get there. He drops back into his chair and starts explaining, telling them that if they could zip between the village and they'd storm that mansion with zero trouble and walk right into **ing. So there were fresh vegetables on the table every single day. Agni flashes a grin and cuts in, saying it would make her kitchen works way easier than before, but Rest leans over the tea and snacks and tells the group, food isn't the only reason. He points out that taking a better route also means they'll get a toilet stop too. Go hunt down Van, Estria and Tiny Korotoko anytime they felt like it. Which makes Rest whip his head toward Kieta, eyes lighting up, ready to beg him for a massive favor. He cuts right to the point and saying he wants to build a bridge that cuts right through they. He says, hold up, can you handle it without tearing up the forest? And then straight up asks if that's even something they're capable of. Kieta freezes for a beat at the crazy idea, then turns to Rest and begs for one night, just one, to figure it out. Kieta wastes zero time. He heads straight to work and declares he's about to dig through a mountain of documents. He's gonna scope out what they've got, and he'll make a beeline for whatever construction materials are still sitting around in the main area, too. The mansion Rest tells him he's got this. Kieta nods like, don't worry, I've got it, and the countdown begins as the very next day hits and Kieta finally drops a stack of blueprints, then tells him they're almost a perfect match for the bridge race. Rest finally gets a breather, stares down the papers and snaps that it's exactly what he was thinking, and then he's convinced he can pull it off, so he tears into the blueprints, hunting through his materials, even as his gift is still ripping through they. He's telling everyone we're starting right now, first, the foundation for the supports, and we'll push our reach. Slams his hand down on the mat, and a massive surge of energy explodes forward, tearing right through the ground swallows the moment, and the unicorn freezes in shock, realizing Rest is just the earth absorbing it to carve out a hole, and it can. And Kieta just stands there, totally locked in, pointing out that this is where Rest's real craft skill finally lights up. Rest steadies his breath and drives his energy with one guiding hand, steering the floating stone blocks as they rocket through the air, and Korotoko and Fail just freeze, staring up with their mouths wide open. With a blinding burst of magic, the bridge erupts into place, slam, snap, and the world cuts off at F. Fail shouts that he's the best, and Korotoko asks if it's all finished. Then Rest says, it's not that simple. He leans in and breaks it down. That his range is capped, so he has to keep running non-stop just to stay in the fight. Running it back again, over and over. He keeps pushing it again and again, until he finally hits the absolute limit of what he can build from right where he's standing. Right there in front of him, Tarine watches him work, then grins and blurts that everyone's cheering him on, and Agni jumps in right away, letting him know she's already stacked a mountain of snacks just for him. He finally gets a breather. Then a few minutes pass and Rest hurries to lock in the main supports for a massive bridge looms overhead, and even the unicorn can't hide its shock, admitting he thought Rest was just some space case joke. Rest is hyping the group, grinning like he actually pulled off a compliment. Then Agni shoots it down instantly, straight up saying it wasn't a compliment at all and she's not buying any of Rest's spin. Still staring straight through the shade, Rest yells that he'll go all in until the entire project is finally done. The bridge begins snapping into place one piece at a time, stretching like a lifeline from Uterau village straight through the forest. Straight back to the manor, and looming right nearby, the massive Starview Tower. Just like that, the bridge is finally finished, and now everyone's rushing wagons and supplies across it. But between the two spots, one of the elf villagers rushes in, drops off fresh vegetables, and cuts off midway like the night has something urgent in store. Agni cuts him off halfway, grinning and saying she just pulled a fresh batch of pancakes from the oven, so he wanted to hand him some as a thank you for everything. Fail finally catches a breather and asks if he can lend a hand fixing up the house, and with a grin he shrugs it off like, no problem at all. Estria bursts in with pure excitement and waves like she's about to share the best news ever. Waves roll in as she shouts for everyone to stop, and Van is right there with her, shouting that he finally showed up to see his master while. But this time Rest sweeps both of them back in. The whole crew gathers in a forest clearing right at the edge of that fresh stone wall, where the massive bridge now towers over everything beneath a sky stitched with evening stars. A crew of dwarves crowds in, staring at the build like they've struck gold, and one of them blurts out that this is one seriously fascinating structure. In the kitchen, a piping bag squeezes out silky filling, carefully packing fresh pastries full with. Agni took the lead in the kitchen, leaning in to warn her student, go slow, handle it like it's precious. Turns out she's training Estria, the Empire's third princess, who's fighting tooth and nail to keep up. But Estria starts clutching the bag way too tight, and Agni screams as everything detonates, spraying cream everywhere in a complete, chaotic disaster. Estrella stands there, smothered in cream, and finally admits she definitely went way too hard with the strength. And she blurts out apologies right away, all while looking completely crushed by the whole situation. The princess lets out a heavy sigh and blurts that making sweets is just way too hard, so Agni snaps and explains that beast folk like them turn out they're actually double the strength of normal humans, so right here, the whole story kicks off and it makes you wonder what happens. Doing delicate work like this is a non-stop battle for them, every single time they're trying to nail it. Estrella's voice cracks and the tears start coming as she blurts out that if she keeps up this speed, she'll never become a bride worthy of a lord like Rest. Agni mulls over the word strength for a beat, then flips his strategy and starts plotting a totally new approach. Until she snaps, bright idea blazing, and runs to Estria like, "I've got a better plan and it's solid." She asks why they won't try baking bread instead of chasing sweets, and Estria snaps her head up, repeating the idea back like it just clicked. Estria tilts her head up, hope blazing in her eyes, and asks Agni straight up if he truly believes she can pull this off. Agni nods at her and explains that kneading bread dough demands serious muscle. It might actually be the perfect match for her, catching Estria completely off guard. She's thrilled by the whole idea, then grabs Agni's attention and begs him, "Please teach me how to do it." Agni leans in and tells her, "Don't worry, I'm heading out to grab every ingredient we need so we can start." They rush into work and Agni roars with excitement, cheering her on as he says the dough looks good, now keep kneading it. She says Lord Rest is obsessed with bread, so you know this is the kind of gift that'll make him over the moon. When she hears it, Estria grins so hard it's almost contagious, and she tells him she's just relieved he'll actually like it. She drops her gaze with pure determination and declares, "I want to be an amazing cook too," because deep in her heart she's counting the days, she can't wait to finally become Lord Rest's wife. Estria is completely starstruck as she watches Lord sink his teeth into the bread, then grin and swear that the flour from Astoria is seriously, insanely good. Estria lets out a tiny gasp as everything begins. Things start to spiral just a little at first, then way faster. Suddenly, the kitchen explodes into chaos and Agni just freezes there, staring like he can't even finish. What the hell? Stunned by the disaster, staring at the wreckage in the room, Agnicide couldn't believe what she was seeing. They stare at the size of it and realize this is going to be a long, brutal road ahead. Tarine, the head maid, sweeps in with a sweet smile and pitches a whole new plan. She asks if Estria decides to shake things up and try her hand at making perfume, and that idea instantly hooks her attention. "Hold up," she demands clarification, and Tarine leans in and makes it crystal clear. She's dead serious. Turin breaks it to you that wearing perfume isn't just a vibe, it's straight-up proper etiquette for dating, especially when you're going out with a gentleman, and while she gushes about how fun it is to put everything together, Estria can't stop fixating on one thing, the date. Stars fill her eyes and she bursts into dreams, streaming a date with Lord Rest and begs Turin, then teaching her everything they know. A gorgeous, mouth-watering scent floods the house, hanging in the air like a promise to come. Tarine grins as she lifts the bottle, bragging that she finished it, sweet, refreshing, and bursting with a gorgeous floral scent. She's convinced Estrella is the perfect fit for a girl like her. Taurine barrels on, asking if they should crank out one more, and then it cuts off mid-sentence, and hurls a request at Estria, begging her to step in and help out by grinding those petals over and over just to keep moving for her. Estria grabs the next batch and fires off. "So what vibe are we brewing with this new perfume?" Turin lets out a mischievous giggle and tells her, "That smell, it's pure adult." She tells you it's for that moment when a date with a gentleman starts turning serious, and things finally heat up. And somehow they end up alone together and Estria freezes, her mind spiraling into this terrifying thought. Is this what being an adult even feels like? Estria's expression snaps into something intense as the suggestion finally clicks in her mind. As the day drifts to a close, everyone's attention snaps right back to Rest brags about how much fun he had today, and right as he's soaking it in, Fail strides up to him. Rest locks eyes with them, her voice goes serious, and she asks if they can really squeeze in a little more time together. He leans in close, presses the truth into her ear, and blurts that he never wants to let her go. Then the confession cuts off as he catches her. She's totally blindsided. She starts to tell him he shouldn't be doing this, but Rest whips around and cuts her off with a cold, "No." Turns out he's cranking the drama way too hard, and Agni can only watch as Fail gets smashed flat. Because, yeah, this whole thing is not working at all. Elsewhere, a young beastman girl sits outside, huffing and sighing with those tiny fluff monsters, all because she messed up again. Taryn spots her slumped and looking totally crushed, then leans in and asks what's wrong, seeing that she totally botched her laundry duty. The girl blurts out the truth, she's just too strong, and every time she reaches for something, it shatters in her hands. Fail hears the tale and suddenly realizes, yeah, that kind of power isn't freedom at all, it's a non-stop nightmare he has to carry. For a split second after the suggestion hits, Turin freezes, pure shock lighting up his face. The beastman girl flashes a sweet smile and asks Turin to help her lug some laundry. Yeah, the kind that's a little too heavy for comfort. She's straight up confident, saying if this job is just manual labor, then she's the one who'll step in and get it done. A few minutes flash by and she's already showing off, standing there with a huge basket of laundry balanced above her head like, yeah, I've got this. And somehow it keeps going. Taryn is absolutely stunned by the help, and you better believe he makes sure to thank her for doing such a great job. The beastman girl just shrugs it off like it's nothing, like, that's it, and cuts herself off. Asks what she's ready to tackle next. Taurine asks if the girl can help fold the clothes, and she practically jumps at the chance. With a huge grin, he slid his hands over that one piece of clothing and said it was actually. The beastman girl leans in and tells him she's just going to smooth out every wrinkle in the shirt. But then, and when she starts thinking about how she's holding Lord Rest's clothes, that focused, razor-sharp look locks in her eyes like she's determined. Estria grips the shirt and blurts that she's gotten a bit sweaty, then she sniffs the fabric like something's about to snap. Just then, it hits her. Rest is standing right there, shirtless, and she snaps her hand over her face as she screams, he shouldn't be. He's really stripping right in front of a girl. She's completely rattled, hiding behind her fingers as she peeks when she accidentally yanks the shirt too tight, the fabric tears clean in half. She freezes in shock, clutching the. She collapses in total defeat, then blurts out apologies, saying she's useless at helping and even worse at practicing to be a bride. To lift her spirits, he shifted the conversation and proudly pointed out that Estria's bread is finally done. Turin grins and nods, ready to get served. Maybe the princess should just take a bite and push forward, but that fresh bread smell is so intense it still feels like too much for her to handle. So don't stress about the shirt. Rest will patch it up in seconds with his craft magic, and then he strides into the room with a huge grin, acting like the chaos doesn't even exist, while he happily remarks that everything smells amazing. Vangora, the Empire's crown prince, arrives on the scene and blurts out that he's starving right while the girls just stare there totally stunned, and Van clocks their confused faces and asks, is something wrong? But Fail starts breaking down what's going on, and meanwhile Estria loses it behind the scenes, frantically trying to shut her up before she blurts out more than she should. Van's eyes widen as it hits him, and he blurts out what he just figured out. He reminds Estria that she's the princess of the Goral Kingdom, and then it sets everything in motion, so it's no big deal if she can't cook or do the laundry. Agni still gets thrown off by that comment, but cuts the tension with a smile and says, a girl wants to do everything she can for the guy she loves, and then Van asks if that's straight up true, and she doubles down, insisting that absolutely means chores too, cooking, laundry, the whole deal. Then she goes on and on about how the mere idea of making the person she loves smile sweeps her straight into pure, total bliss. But Van just stares at her with pure deadpan, then shuts her down, saying that when it comes to his sister, that imagination is stretching way too far. Vangora snaps at Fail that her imagination is out of control, but she doesn't stop there. She won't drop it and presses Rest until he agrees to forge tools that can handle her full strength without shattering. Rest eyed her with sharp doubt like, are you really serious about having me forge indestructible tools? While Agni nods and says, if we keep going like this, we're gonna run out of gear real fast, because no matter how many pots and tools they grab, they just keep burning through them, right up until they're left with nothing but scraps and a trail of waste. He takes a breather to scan his inventory. Yeah, he's got loads of normal wood and iron, but then the question gnaws at him. What does he really need to build something that's actually strong enough to stand up to anything? Keita steps in, leans in like he's got the answer, and says if they're truly serious, Mithril is the best shot. Rest's eyes widen at the suggestion and he blurts, "You mean really you're talking about using myth." Kaido leans in and tells them this isn't just any ore, it's super precious, so it's the perfect material for the job. Keita cuts off his explanation and snaps that mithril isn't some easy-to-spot thing, it's a nightmare to track down. So Van jerks to a stop for a heartbeat, like a light bulb just flickered on inside his head. He says, "I swear, I've heard rumors about that stuff lately back in Udero village." He swore the village chief is the one guy you need to ask if you want the real scoop. Agni finally gives her the green light, because they've got a real lead to chase now. Rest's fired up, he slams his fist down and tells everyone to move right now, hunting that mithril, and he makes sure Estria knows she's coming with him. Vale starts giggling to herself and pokes at them, insisting the whole trip feels like a full-on date. Right then, the crew kicks off their hunt for that rare ore, charging across a huge stone bridge as they make their way to. Keita leans up front, digs in, and keeps the horses rolling at a steady, unshakable pace. While Rest tells Estria she should just kick back, relax, and enjoy the ride like it's a real date. Then she blushes and goes, "I'm totally down for that." Vangar approves. He's got a considerate bone when he says, "I'm not about to wreck someone's date," so he hangs back and steps in to help. And the others still stuck doing their chores, like they had zero say in the matter. So Turin flashes a huge grin and tells him that having an extra person around helping out would be an absolute lifesaver, no exaggeration. While they're still getting their stuff together, she leans in and asks the group if they should call in the Holy Beast too, bring in the big guns to help them out. She just shrugs and says the Holy Beast is doing perfectly fine, right where he's at, no worries, and that's somehow the great idea. Estria blurts out that she's packing the lunches Agni handed her, then adds that she even pitched in and helped with the food herself. As they march toward the village, she's practically glowing with excitement to help on the trip, and Fail barrels into the convo with a grin, telling Rest and Estria tell her she'll be their personal servant for the day, because she has to do it and that's it. And it definitely doesn't mess up their big date, because she's clearly loving every second, teasing the two of them like it's pure sport. Rest smiles and tells her he's genuinely looking forward to the help, but his mood shifts the moment he glances toward the front of they. I can't help but wonder why Keita has to show up right when they're finally trying to squeeze in a romantic date. He just brushes off the remark and calls out to him. Turin makes everyone remember the real truth, right now. They're not just out here for fun, they're hunting down the mithril because she refuses to let anyone lose track of the mission. But Russ thinks she's taking it way too seriously, and he says calling this an investigation is a little stretch because his real plan is simple, track down enough of he was gathering metal to forge some seriously awesome cooking tools for the house. Keita's not buying that casual talk for even a second. He snaps it all to a stop and fires off. Do you even get how insane the price of mithril silver is? He tells them that a single plate made from that stuff can buy enough to feed a whole family for an entire month. He cracks it down for everyone. This rare metal is the adventurer's dream because it's ridiculously light and even bounces back magic spells like they can't touch it. The whole point he's trying to slam home is this finding. Cracking how to mine this ore would basically wipe out the island's money problems in one shot. He pushes through the lecture and tells Rest straight up, if he actually cares about the future of this place, he better take their income seriously. In the back, the mood suddenly lightens when someone calls out how good Fail's snack looks, and she just beams and nods along like nothing at all can stress her. Yelling at him to pay attention, then that just makes him grin like I know, and the moment drags on from there. The carriage rumbles onward down the path, not stopping for a single second. The group finally stumbles into Uderau village, a tiny, whisper-quiet hideaway tucked deep in They finally link up with Korotoko's father, and the second mithril gets mentioned, shock hits his face like a punch. Turns out, during a fresh scouting run along the coast, they spotted rare ore hiding inside a cave, and that discovery set everything in motion. So the entire crew goes full speed toward the cave entrance, ready to rip into whatever's waiting inside. Mithril is a huge deal because it fights magic at its core. It's the ultimate shield, scary magical monsters hate it and stay far, far away. And the local half-elves don't really lose sleep over the mining, because the ore actually. It makes their own powers harder to tap into. As they push into the dark cavern, Rest starts mid-sentence, trying to say what they're about to face before the rest gets cut off. The crew realizes he's never even gone this way before, ever. Fail bursts into laughter and tells everyone the dark cave feels exactly like a courage test. Then Estria chimes in like, "Yep, it's got that spooky vibe." Rest tells them that back home, and they actually have people fork over cash just to slip through a terrifying dark mansion for kicks. He spills the plan how they whip up fake ghosts with magic just to terrorize anyone who dares to step inside. Then Estria cuts him off like, "That sounds like a..." Fail bursts in, shouts boo, and tries to prove to everyone the slickest way to pull off a surprise. It works way too well. Taurine actually screams, and Fail instantly realizes he might have pushed it way past the limit. While all that unfolds, Rest whips around to Estria and asks if they should hold hands, because this cave is getting pitch black fast. He flashes her this insanely calm smile and just waits for her answer. While Estria's totally flustered, she blurts out yes, and her face instantly burns bright red as they step deeper into the cavern together. And as Estria tries to speak, her thoughts swallow her mid-sentence. She's mostly stuck on one terrifying question, whether she's squeezing Rest's hand way too hard or not. He pulled back for another breath, then adjusted his grip smoother, steadier, so he could finally. He can tell her, "If you hold my hand like that, we'll be okay." And Astria just looks up at him. He keeps close, guarding her like a promise, making sure she feels completely safe as they push deeper into the dark. Kieta clears his throat, locks eyes with the room, and looks like he's about to unleash something huge. Something important. He spins around, settles in, and asks for one thing, an honest answer about something that hits way too close to home. He straight up demands, did Rest really have any real run-ins with girls back when he was at the academy? Rest doesn't even pause. He flashes a smile like he's already ahead of the moment. He flashes a grin and brags that back then, he totally had plenty of girlfriends. Kieta lets out a heavy sigh and scratches his head, staring at the strange way this Rest hits, so different from what his brother Bird ever gets. Rest just bursts into laughter and says his younger brother is leagues more solid, way more of a man of integrity than he'll ever be. Fail cuts in with a booming laugh, claims Rest was always the big hit, and then drops a girl's name, Claire. But Rest looks totally stunned and blurts out, "Who is that?" While Fail snaps back that he'd been getting chased by her this whole time. Kieta's face turns to stone as he tells Rest he can't possibly let a comment like that slide, not when it comes from that ghost. So Rest shrugs it off, claims he's noble too, and acts like it's totally normal that everyone's into him. Estria snaps into this terrifying stare and grabs Rest with both hands, demanding he spill every last detail about his past girlfriends, so tight he can barely breathe, and he blurts out that he's straight up damaging him, like he's really going to break him. She jerks back, Blurt apologizes like it all slipped out on its own, and Rest leans in like, "So you're saying we just," and trails off into an awkward dive right into the cave and explore every dark corner. The crew trudges deeper into those rocky tunnels, and Kieta leads the charge with a map in hand, until he slams to a stop at a solid wall and blurts out They finally sprinted all the way to the exact spot. Kieta breaks it down back when the half-elf ancestors first arrived at that place, right from the start. They hauled tools to the island and started digging a tunnel right from the inlet, digging harder with every passing minute. They churned the land into shape, but the tales swear there were still a few spots where everything went sideways. So yeah, it turns out their mining magic failed completely, and they had to throw in the towel on. Kieta assumes the magic bombed because there's a pretty solid. Maybe there's mithril hiding in those rocks, but the rest of them aren't scared. They're telling everyone to just go for it. Rest thrusts his hand toward the stone and shouts it's craft magic, and then suddenly, a massive blast of energy slams the wall, igniting the entire cave, and he starts smashing straight through. Kieta freezes in disbelief as it clicks. Rest's gift is strong enough to swallow mithril whole, and then, all Rest can't believe it, this wild power isn't just luck. It feels like the gods themselves handed it to him. Kieta nods as Rest scans his screen, confirming he can 100% pull pure mithril straight out of the earthen wall, no stopping at all, even down to the last second too. Tarine says this is exactly what she expected from him, and Rest just cracks up, thanking her, then Taryn yanks him over and points out that the cave doesn't stop there at all. It stretches way past the hole he just smashed. So Rest snaps into action, checks the scene, and tells them to push a little further in, because that's where the real answers are. The group strides into a massive underground chamber, and it looks like the rock itself was carved into a hidden kingdom. Estria snatches up a cup and Turin grips a plate in confusion, staring at the random tableware like, why is this here? Kieta finally gets a crystal clear look at they. He digs into it and then his jaw drops because he realizes the gear is forged from a mithril alloy and it all clicks, then it turns. Then Rest whips his gaze over all that gear and can't shake the thought, someone's gotta be living down here in the dark, right? He stared up at the jagged rocks hanging overhead, like they were ready to drop at any second. From the ceiling, someone blurts, what if it's just a mole? But then it all goes on to something worse fast. But as Rest and Tureen push ahead, they suddenly spot a dark entrance that yawns deeper into the cave. Kieta's eyes blow wide when he spots something slipping through the shadows. A creepy gumo sound bursts from the dark, and then this tiny dude with a huge white beard suddenly steps into view. Fail starts screaming at the top of her lungs while Rest and Kieta keep working at the restraints, and Turin bursts out shouting that it's some kind of bearded monster. Rest bolts into a sprint the second the bearded guy starts charging at them with a shovel and Kieta snaps, get out of here now. But then Kieta slams to a halt and realizes this isn't random noise. Those words sound way too familiar and now he's stuck wondering if he truly recognizes who that is. The bearded man abruptly stops mid-swing. Then he cranes his head up to Kieta, like everything just changed in that moment and then Kieta starts drumming his feet on the cave floor in this unsettling rhythm, like it's setting up what comes next for him. Doing this insanely goofy dance right in front of the guy like it's the funniest thing ever. A mysterious secret code, hidden like a bomb waiting for the right key. Kieta stomps the last beat of his weird foot-tapping routine, then freezes in perfect stillness, holding his breath to see if it actually worked. Turin and Rest are completely lost and Rest keeps grabbing Kieta's attention, yelling, wait, what is even going on? But the bearded guy just locks eyes with him, his gaze so intense it feels like it's cutting straight through his soul. Zero distractions, just locking in on the rhythm, beat after beat. Rhythm. Kieta's boots finally scraped across the cave floor, and for one breathless second, everything went dead silent while the bearded man nods slowly like he finally gets it, while Fail and Turin hang back with huge question marks over their heads, utterly lost as then it hits them all at once. Rest blurts out, wait, is that really the Dwarven language? And Kieta confirms it, yeah, that greeting wasn't random. He tells you that one of his old adventure buddies was obsessed with all that, so he somehow locked a few phrases into his memory. He admits he's not good enough for a real full conversation, but he's still pretty sure he got to make it crystal clear they aren't enemies. Rest finally glances at the guy's gear as the cave's mood snaps and starts to change. If that shovel just sits there on the ground and does nothing, proving the bearded man has finally snapped and decided to stop swinging at them. Rest stands frozen, replaying every single thing that just went down like it's burning in his head. Then it hits him, he finally gets why that guy was furious. This cave wasn't just a dungeon to him, it was his home, and he accidentally tore it apart the moment he absorbed everything inside. The bearded man just glares at him with pure irritation, huffs out a frustrated sound, like the rest of the sentence can't even hold it back as it trails off. He darts his hand toward the smashed remains of the man's bowl, rushing before he gathers his strength, shouts craft, and then, boom, his skill snaps to life as a blinding light erupts out of nowhere. Spinning through the glittering shards, the bearded man freezes in pure disbelief as the pieces yank themselves back together. His eyes bulge when the plate reshapes into one solid piece. And he throws that fixed plate up into the air right away, grinning like he just won everything, while Ristow watches and mutters that she still doesn't get it until she remembers, if she's not mad. Look, odds are it's more than fine. Now he's totally lost in the moment, just staring at his favorite bowl, shiny and brand new like it's magic. But even at Rest, he's on edge, sweat runs down his face as standing there, he's bracing to see if the tension truly cracks, or if it's about to snap back. Rest locks eyes with the guy and blurts, Mr. Dwarf, clocking that he's not just standing there, he's waiting for something big to blow up. Standing there, right in the spot, was this massive, jaw-dropping mithril statue of a warrior that just screamed legend. Russ locks onto it, squints and demands, is that really a mithril statue? confusion washing over him as Kieta pauses for a beat as the group lays it out. Dwarves aren't just miners, they're spirits born from the magic of creation. And boom, every dwarf has a master they worship, like there's one bigger power everyone bends towards, so it means. Because they don't get counted as true master craftsmen until they can remake that master's statue from Mithril themselves. Vale steps in and tells Rest, I swear that dwarf wants you to be the one who does it. Kyater nods like, yep, that's exactly what it looks like, and gestures at the heap of busted metal from every failed attempt. Rest looks totally unsure and straight up asks, are you sure it's okay for me to be the one making it? Kieta shoots him down with a grin, because this whole job could be their perfect excuse to go reclaim the mithril the cave swallowed. Rest pauses for one breath, replaying everything in his head, and he tells the group, I guess you're right about the dwarf and the whole group. The whole squad storms back to the village, ready to tell everyone exactly what went down inside that cave. Korotoko gets all fired up and blurts out, so there really were dwarves down there, right? And Kieta answers that. That's wild, because dwarves usually hate hanging around in the same place for too long. But Kieta snaps that their presence is actually a trap. Proofs in this whole place is one massive mithril vein. Kieta turns the page and watches as Rest hands him a brand new. Agni slips the new item over to Estria as he breaks it down. This thing is a tool of F*G. A mithril frying pan. When Estria lays eyes on it, her grin goes feral as she swears that with something this brutal, even she can't crack it, but the second she applies pressure, that metal just folds and bends like paper. Estria and Fael just froze, staring at the ruin like ghosts, completely stunned at how effortlessly the mithril crumbled. Kata stares at the warped pan and then he blurts out, He finally clicks, and that's when Rest snaps, what do you mean? Kieta's eyes sharpen, and he tells them with a serious face that what Rest forged isn't just any ordinary mithril alloy. Turns out it's totally thanks to Rest's crafting skill. He didn't even have to sort anything, the system just handled it automatically, sorting through piles of iron and a chaotic mix of other random metals. He tore away every last impurity, piece by piece, crafting the material into absurdly pure mithril silver, like it was forged for legends. He's totally blown away and blurts out that it's incredible, but Rest just stares at her and asks if it's really that big of a deal. Kieta stares at the piles of glowing metal and tells Rest that with his power, and what's on this island, they can make it happen. They somehow got their hands on mithril silver, and that stuff sells for an insane amount of money, turning it into a massive power source for everything still to come. The fate of the Kaliel territory, blazing toward the future. Even with the huge news hanging in the air, Rest just sighs and admits he's not really feeling the hype, so Fael snaps at him for reacting like that. Rest stared off to the side, wrestling with the thought that even if they'd truly unearthed a literal mithril mine, there's no way they keep digging unless they can somehow get everyone else to jump on board with them. Rest stared up at the night sky and mused that if he were a dwarf, he'd probably laze around all day, doing nothing but enjoying the chill life. So tell Kieta-sai that this super laid-back vibe is exactly the kind of mindset he's been expecting from you. Inside the mansion, Taurine frantically plucks petals from a flower, whispering about love and hate with every single pull. She clings to the very last petal, and Fael just stands there like an idiot, watching her act totally unhinged. Taurine's cheeks flare red as she giggles to herself, and she blurts out, half hopeful and half terrified, wondering if it means he's really got feelings for her. Fael tries to snap her attention back, but Agni just stares it all down in ruthless, breathless silence. Rest strides into the room, flashes a wave, and asks Taurine if she can get his tea going. Taurine stays stone still like a statue as Ristet tries calling her name again, and Fael watches from the sidelines, worry written all over his face. Fael clocks that Turin's useless right now, then volunteers to make the tea, and Turin's like, yeah, Rest is totally fine. As Fael storms out, Rest whips around to Agni and demands to know what the world could have done to Turin to make him snap like this. Agni launches into the truth, explaining everything to Rest and making it clear she knows exactly what's been happening. It kicked off last night when Taurine slipped outside to grab herbs for the house. Then, while she was out, she caught sight of a lone, dark figure posted by the waterfall, and curiosity hit like a spark. So she slipped behind the bushes and shouted, testing the air to see if anyone was really there. It was a shirtless, rock-hard, muscular guy just soaking in the moonlight, and Turin couldn't stop staring, like he was totally trapped by it, which is. The moment he spotted her, he snapped into panic and started blurting apologies for the. Tyrene shot out a hand to block his exit, blurting her name and begging him to wait. Right now. She didn't stop there, she straight up confronted that mysterious stranger and demanded to know what his. He looked totally blindsided, then, instead of answering, he snapped at her to forget they'd ever met. Taurine just froze on the spot, her face igniting bright red after that one crazy interaction. The guy tells Taurine to slap it off like a nightmare and just forget the whole thing. And just like that, he blurts out his goodbye, bolts off, and Taurine is left frozen, shouting his name in pure, stunned disbelief. She just stands there beneath the trees, totally dazed, stunned by how fast everything spun out of control. With a blush creeping up her face, she can't stop wondering if that guy was real or just a ghost or a phantom, but then she realizes it has to be real, because her heart is still going wild, fluttering like crazy. Back at the house, Agni finishes spinning Rest's tail and Fail rushes in with a fresh cup of tea for him. It's honestly pretty wild, like something ripped straight out of a storybook, and he can't stop. Can anyone actually living on that island really fit that description? She blurts that she's never seen a guy like him around here, and Fail can't help but wonder if someone like that truly exists, or if Turin just spun the whole story up in his head. Turin's still stuck in the heat of the moment, trying to make sense of everything as she insists that, because what she saw wasn't some dream at all. She even snatches up the button he dropped and holds it out like hard proof. Agni stares at her and bluntly says it's crystal clear. Taurine's already fallen for that rugged stranger with the charming face, and Estria bubbles with excitement, convinced this whole thing is about to turn into the most wonderfully lovely story. She scoots closer and asks for more details, and Turin lights up, chatting away and spilling everything. The sun sinks behind the house, and the whole place finally goes quiet for the night. With the animal pens set, Agni strides out to the birds and declares, "Dinner's here at last." She watches as they swarm the food and it hits her, damn, they've grown a ton. And since they're growing fast, she realizes she better start naming all of them, like right now. She just smirks at how adorable they are, and then, out of nowhere, some guy strolls past the back window. A light-haired young man looms in the shadows, stone-faced and dead serious. Agni spots him for a split second, and her expression instantly goes completely blank. She yanks herself back, jabs a finger at him and snaps, "Who the heck are you?" Meanwhile, the guy strides into the room like he's already owned the place. He steps into the light like he's a complete stranger, yet his clothes hit you with that same familiar vibe. She leans in and asks if it's really Master Kieta, then he lights up that she clocked it was him and he's about to tell her something. But trust me, this has a lot to unpack. While the sun blazes high above the farm outside, he takes in the whole situation, letting every detail hit him at once. Agni snaps and screams that he's got a secret gift to make himself young again, then he shrugs and casually goes, "Yeah, that's exactly it." Kieta admits he hasn't told a soul a single word about it since he started working for Lady Alyssa. Then he trails off, staring at his past. He stares at his old self and admits it's the first time he's ever been trapped like this. He can't flip back to who he was. Kieta admits he's been quietly tapping into his power to slip into a younger form anytime he needs to pull off the dirty manual work. But then he holds up his hand and admits, straight up, that his power hasn't been working right at all lately. Stands right there staring at Kieta like, oh no, that gift blew way past control, right when a unicorn suddenly drops in and warns, yeah, this kind of stuff happens to humans all the time once they start getting old. The unicorn straight up admits it's still a gift anyone would crave, and Agni just freezes, utterly stunned by the wild turn of events. Agni snaps back to reality and blurts, "Wait, where did I even come from?" right as the title flashes across the screen and declares him the holy beast unicorn. He nonchalantly drops the bomb that he saw the entire thing unfold. A fiery thing drops from the sky, and Agni immediately thinks it's downright disgusting. Rest leans in, studies the creature, and tells him, yeah, turns out he's got way more smarts than you'd expect from a holy beast. The unicorn locks eyes with Kieta and tells him to chill out and soak up being young for a while. Kieta shuts that idea down on the spot, ripping it apart and saying he can't, because that'll mess with his daily grind. Kieta finally decides, enough hiding, and goes for broke, laying out exactly how his gift works to Rest and the rest of the crew, but he looks totally overwhelmed, scrambling for the right words like they might run away from him. A unicorn leaps in and blurts out that no matter what Terrain. Sora watched as Kieta's body jerked and reacted instantly after he unleashed his power. And he leans in and says, if Terrain figures out her so-called big crush is really just Kieta, she's about to get absolutely crushed. Admits it's the last thing he wants. He can't even stomach the thought of seeing her like that. Someone shoots back that, yeah, that argument makes sense. But the truth is, they still have to face what's happening right now. The unicorn snaps that Kieta should ditch the fight and hunt for a hiding spot until his body finally resets to normal right as the door explodes open and Terrain stands there, eyes locked on Kieta as she blurted out, I finally found you. Kieta just freezes solid. He's totally caught off guard because that she's standing there right in front of him. Agni and the unicorn are frozen, staring in pure, jaw-dropping shock. Because their plan to hide him totally collapsed, Terrain locks eyes with the young man's stand. She stands there, points at the man, and tells Lord Rest, this is the one I've been searching for. Turin's still stuck on this guy she likes, but Fail can't move on at all. He keeps getting caught on the same feelings over and over. Kieta tries to play it cool and blurts that yeah, he's the guy, then Turin cuts in and warns him it's a massive. I'm so honored to meet him again. Rest steps in and welcomes the newcomer to Aldoba Island, announcing himself as the lord of the place. Rest Kale, then. Agni's anxiety spikes out of nowhere. She stares at that Rest, like she's one breath away from spilling the truth about who this guy really is. She dives right in, straight up points at him and shouts to everyone that this guy is really Lord Kieta. And she tries to tell him there's a real reason he looks so different right now. But Terrain just shrugs it off, laughs in Agni's face and asks what she's talking about, because she's absolutely sure this person can't be Kieta. Terrain snaps that Kieta can't possibly be this young, then Agni doubles down, insisting that no matter how you stare at him, it's still 100% Kieta. The group finally turns inward because the rest is done, no more standing around talking in circles. And they all need to drop everything and go grab some tea right now. Agni watches, eyes locked on the group as they move in. Heads inside, they stared in shock, replaying how Kieta got yanked away, and then she snaps to the truth. Right now, her and Lady Agni are the only ones who know the real guy is Kieta. The unicorn scoots closer to the clothes, drops its voice to a whisper, and promises it'll be their tiny secret, just the two of them. But Agni shuts him down on the spot, demanding he stop spitting out those disgusting words right now. The unicorn cuts her off and tells her she shouldn't be so pale as a tomato. She blurts back immediately, nope, she isn't blushing. Once they finally sink into the room, the unicorn leans in and insists they all just kick back and keep guard over a young girl's dream. Inside the room, the young-looking Kieta glances over at him and fires off a question. Are you really enjoying this chaos or what? Rest just grins and says, come to think of it. And you can tell he's genuinely baffled, like, where the heck did Kieta go off to, causing. Kieta nearly choked on his drink as Rest casually told everyone that his butler is Kieta. He leans in and says, the Ma. That man is an irreplaceable, precious part of their family. Kieta goes completely silent.